red. Red is on. Time being 4:45. I'd like to call this meeting of the Tilton Board of Selectmen open on May 8th. You'd all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The ninth.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Selectman Skin is running a few minutes behind, but he'll be joining us soon.
He's right here.
First thing on the agenda is the Finance Officer, Tim Pearson, to give a presentation about the tax assessment, I believe.
Yes, so this will be very brief. I just, in my report that I provided you, there's some other items there as well, but I'll direct your attention to number 2, which is on the preliminary values. And so our equalized value this last year was different. In other words, these numbers that you see here aren't our equalized value. These are the sum total of all the tax cards. So our equalized value last year was $512 million with utilities, and the sum total of all tax cards for that same valuation was $575 million. The new total preliminary valuation is $682 million, and which represents a 18.72% increase over the prior sum total of all the tax cards. This represents about a $107 million increase. 46% of the increase is attributable to land, and 54% to buildings and what Avatar characterizes as other. So I would expect that when our equalized value is worked out, that it'll be roughly the same proportional increase of about 19% or thereabouts. And keep in mind that if you think of a teeter-totter, as the equalized value goes up, in other words, all the assessments went up, we are not raising 19% more money this next year, so therefore our tax rate will go down. So what happens is you see on one end, you see the equalized value go up and the tax rate come down because we're raising and appropriating what was approved at town meeting.
But it's not going to go down proportionally. Our tax rate's going to go up because of what was spent at town meeting.
That's correct. It is directly related to what's
paying
spent.
for that land all in 1 year, et cetera, et cetera.
That's correct.
So it was going to go up anyway.
It was going to go up.
The amount that's going to come down is going to
But
be
not
significantly
19.
less if we hadn't done what we did at town meeting.
Right.
So theoretically, if your assessment went up 19%, you're even.
Theoretically.
If it went up 30%, you're going to be paying more.
Correct.
If you went up 10%, you'd save.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe.
If everything else is equal. And there's a lot of variables in there. But the important takeaway of this is that the valuation increase does not mean your taxes are going to increase by that proportion.
So there might be some people who take exception to their valuation. What would be the procedure for questioning that with the town?
Well, I would defer to our town administrator for that answer.
Ms. Forster.
All the instructions on the letter they got?
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone got a letter. Peter's.
Joe,
I've seen the letter. I got mine.
it says
So-
it
I
on
still want to say it on the camera.
And Peter, maybe you want to read it since you have it handy, but it's basically you have a 4-day period. I think it's from the 20th or up to the 20th. Peter's.
Yeah, they say you should call 603-798-4017 starting Monday, May 20th through Friday, May 24th, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. to arrange the appointment. That's just to arrange the appointment.
So I just want to bring up one other thing that Selectman Dawson mentioned as it pertains to the tax rate at town meeting, and that is relative to number 4 on the back side of my report. So I'm working on a listing of personnel savings as we've had vacancies, so that we can keep track of those those savings to date, depending upon when we hire someone to replace those people, and hope to be able to present that in a way that will allow us to have less impact of that land purchase, so that it will hopefully defray some of that expense.
We won't know till the end of the year, right?
We will not know till, well, it'll depend upon when we hire replacements and at what rate we've hired those replacements, and that sort of thing. But I'll be keeping a running total for you so that you'll have that information. Okay?
Does anybody have a question for Tim?
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Tim.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is a work session on parking. Oh, yeah, okay. Bring the minutes of 4:25 to the floor for discussion. Okay, I'll bring up something I spoke to you about before, Gail. The painting of the siphon structure in municipal lot G. I've never heard it referred to that, always as a sewer interceptor, and I don't know if that's correct, but siphon structure might not explain it. Is that the siphon structure?
It's actually, excuse me, in my communications with, I guess it would be DES, they're calling it the Winnipesaukee River Basin.
Siphon structure.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
I live and I learn.
So, we've gone to the Conservation Commission and the Tilton School, but I don't see anything in here that we've gone to the other schools.
It's the next, literally the next line in that paragraph.
Yep. Should reach out to the 4 local schools.
So Rachel's, you're gonna pass it off to Rachel.
No,
Yeah.
Jeannie will contact them.
so,
I don't understand the way that it's written.
where are we at? What page?
Page 1, on the last paragraph.
And you will reach out to
Yeah.
the 4 local schools.
Yes, so,
Spoken to 2 and will reach out.
Jeannie has
So-
spoken with the Conservation
and
Commission.
it should actually be, because it's in total 4 schools. That would be inclusive of the Tilton School.
So what does the Conservation Commission have to do with, I know Rachel has to do with the Tilton School, but what does the Conservation
So-
Commission have to do with the conversation?
Sure. So Kathy and Chuck Mitchell came to me and asked me about it. You know, prior to that conversation, the select board had mentioned this to me as something they wanted to get done.
Right.
So Kathy and Chuck come in to talk to me about something else. And they also talked about this project and mentioned a gentleman, an artist, if you remember, who might be interested, but there might be a charge. And I asked the selectmen what they wanted to do, and they said they'd really like to engage the students in the Tilton area. So we decided, or I should say you decided, not to pursue a professional, but really engage the students, and so that's what I'm working on.
So perhaps maybe if somebody were reading this 5 or 10 years from now, wouldn't understand that conversation, which is kind of what I remember, the conversation. So maybe we need to, Jeannie has spoken with the Conservation Commission and let them know that you'll be reading, you know, that the board has decided to let the local schools do the painting.
And I did have that conversation with them already, so
Okay,
we
so
can work on
that's-
the language.
So that language needs to reflect in this paragraph, or not?
And it's even more imperative because there was a lot of confusion last fall,
Yeah,
and it seemed to get away from the Board of Selectmen.
yeah.
And there was someone mentioned that I don't know if it was at one of these meetings, that there was a special kind of paint that was required to use. And so I did follow up with DES, and they said no, just acrylic or an oil-based. They've prepped it to take either one of those paints. So,
Have you contacted the middle or high school yet, Jeannie?
I've put calls in, I haven't actually made a connection yet. I did have that conversation with Rachel only because I was meeting with her on something else, and then I followed up with her, and she told me that the art teacher would be in contact with me. I hadn't heard back, so I followed up again and said, this is really, time is of the essence. If school is going to be out and we're going to try to get this done. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it may be that this doesn't get done till the fall if we're going to rely on the students.
Another option at the high school is if you contact Michael Petrin and the Ag Department, the FFA group may be able to do something because they do a lot of projects and stuff.
Okay,
It's a great idea.
all right.
150.
On page 1 on the town administrator report, after a brief discussion, no policy change would take place at this time. We did discuss that we should look at the policy
Yes.
for possible changes.
Where are you, Catherine?
On the first page under town administrator report, the discussion of the bus and post-cane policy. So it's right, no policy change would take place at this time, but I think we should add in here that we did say that we would look at it to update it, really. Then on page 5, and down in the middle, Jeannie mentioned parking ordinances are being reviewed and will be brought before the board. Selectman Dawson noted there just needs to be language for the signs. Well, I gotta say, even Selectman Dawson doesn't know what Selectman Dawson was talking about. I had to have been out of content.
Where's this? Out of context?
Page 5.
Right in the middle of page.
Right
5.
above Selectman
You
Jessamine.
mentioned parking ordinances are being reviewed and will be brought before the board.
It has to do with the above paragraph when you were talking about the 2-hour limit.
Be
I
language for
can
the
move
signs.
that up to the same paragraph.
Mm-hmm. That would be good.
When you all were talking about the 2-hour limit and removing the
That's what I
signs.
was talking about? Because that doesn't make sense
We were
either.
talking about removing the signs, that we're gonna remove the signs, that we're gonna put
But I wouldn't
different
say that
language.
there needs to be language
Well, you
in the
have-
parking ordinance
you
about
have-
it. That's been something different. I'm gonna tell you, the signs has nothing to do with the ordinance, just take them down or leave them up. We wouldn't have added that in the ordinance. Would you listen and,
Doesn't, yeah.
would you listen and see what I was talking about?
You were talking about meeting with the chief to get language for those signs in the 2-hour warning.
But I still wouldn't have said put it in the ordinance.
It doesn't have to do with the ordinance.
That
You mentioned
sentence
the parking
says,
ordinances will be, why don't we listen to the tape again?
Jeannie mentioned the parking ordinance are just
Yes.
being reviewed and be brought before the board.
Okay, and then,
So if I
To
wasn't
close it.
talking about the ordinance, then that sentence doesn't belong in that paragraph.
Okay, so why don't we do this, we'll review the language and make the corrections.
There. And I will leave it to you to figure out what I was talking about.
I'm wondering, following that thought with the next paragraph, you were gonna check with Primex for any potential liability we might have for utilizing the Cedar Street, High Street property for PVC pipes. I'm just wondering how that turned out.
Yes, I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot to put it in my report. I did talk to Primex and they said they didn't see any issue with it,
Okay?
so.
On page 4, just as a note, under Pat reported Senior Executive Committee had met with Community Action. Sue, she prefers Suzanne Demers, the director. I got caught with that yesterday. Make a motion, we approve as amended the minutes of April 25th.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? Peter? No? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So now, the hour being 5 o'clock, we have a work session on parking.
There he is.
And speaker park.
The application we already approved, right?
I think he's going to talk about
Oh, it's in this to be signed though.
That's
the
the,
application? No.
no, it's the materials that go with the application. Isn't
Here's
that,
the application.
but isn't what they have in the to be signed, the ordinance, the permit, the ordinance that goes with the application that you signed?
The application one,
And,
okay, got it.
and you had approved that last week with some
Yes.
minor changes, they made the changes.
The application, right? We approved.
You approved the application 2 weeks ago, and then last week you
We
looked at
approved it, right.
it's the permit ordinance that goes with the application.
Application only, right.
And
The
you,
parking permits, the sticker ordinance.
right, and you
Oh.
approved that last week with some, you asked Dave to make some minor changes, he did that, and that's what's in your to be signed. Correct. And so now, we're working on the traffic and parking ordinance. That is the entire piece. I don't know if
Yes.
you guys want to come up here.
Is this one in the to be signed identical to the one in the folder? Sometimes it doesn't work like that.
No, they're two different. One, in the to be signed is the, see it says parking permit ordinance.
That's
And
correct.
if you look at this, which is what we're
This
working.
is traffic and parking.
Right.
Okay, so we
If you
don't have
remember-
this one in
Different
there?
ordinance.
So we buy smaller versions.
So this one is,
Oh my gosh.
the one that's in the manila envelope is the only one, manila folder is the only one we're working on tonight. These that we had last week that we were told to study, were not.
Are done, correct, because it's in your to be signed file.
Got it.
Okay,
All right.
good enough.
So, Abe, I don't know if you want to take us, or the chief take us through this, or how you want to tackle this, but you got an hour.
All right.
We don't need to use all of it.
No, probably keep it pretty short and sweet. I mean, so let me just get up to speed here. I just woke up, so this is my morning. So are we going with the traffic and parking, or we're
Yes.
handling just?
Traffic
Yes.
and parking.
So that's the big one.
That's
Yes.
the difference.
And that's when, so when we took with that, we revised everything, kind of slimmed it down. When I say we, myself and Beth also just kind of squished it down, and then kind of picked out a couple things, obviously the things that touch on the parking, not the traffic.
No, no.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, we on different?
Yeah,
Yeah, the permit
Okay,
parking.
I'm confused.
okay.
Yeah.
This
Is this
is
what you're
traffic
talking
and
about?
parking ordinance.
That's what we're working on.
This is parking permit
Right,
ordinance.
That's
that-
done.
That's
Okay,
done.
but when I look at this and this, it's the same document.
Okay, so what happened was,
I don't want to know what happened. I want to know why am I looking at the same document? Authority of police is the same?
we consolidated a separate parking sticker ordinance to go along with the application that the residents will fill out from the PD to get a sticker. So we have a separate sticker,
Okay,
parking sticker.
but why does it have the same?
Explain.
It doesn't make sense what you're explaining to me, I'm sorry. It just
Abe,
doesn't, why do
So
we
when-
need two?
When the residents come in to apply for an application for a parking permit, they're gonna receive this, okay? So let's be all on the same page. This is the application. We're gonna say paper, and we're gonna do front to
Yeah,
back.
that's fine.
Fill it out, boom.
Yep,
When-
good.
When we're done with that, if you look on the bottom, and which you guys have seen that, it says, I acknowledge the receipt of the town parking permit ordinance, and have read the attached section of this ordinance. So what's gonna be included with that they're going to take home is the revised, which is just a scaled down version of the traffic and parking ordinance. So what I'm handing you them, because you know, and I know, and I've done it, and I do it, is if you don't need to read it, you're not gonna read it. And it's just a lot of mumbo jumbo. So if I'm going through the traffic and parking ordinance, and I see a bunch of stuff on like stop intersections, and I see commercial motor vehicle, I'm gonna be like, I don't think I was supposed, this is way too much. So we slimmed everything down, we got to the meat and potatoes of it, and that's what this parking permit ordinance is, and that's what they will take with them
A
home.
handout,
It's what pertains to parking.
handout.
And that will give you everything you need to know as a resident, as a long-term permit holder, this is what you need.
So aren't we giving them a false sense of security if there is going to be more in, and I'm sorry, I'm still, which one have you got?
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
one here.
So if there's still even more that they have to abide by in this, and we're leaving it out of this, it's kind of like setting them up for
Well,
failure.
not really, because now they're only worried about is parking, they're not worried about traffic. Traffic laws and parking laws are two different things, so you're moving, it's a moving vehicle, and it's a parked vehicle, that's what I'm trying to say. So,
Makes me uncomfortable.
I understand, and that's why we're kind of talking about it. If you know, if we all come to a consensus and we don't think that that's the right way to do, then we'll hand them the, 10, 15 pages, and they can read all of that. I was just trying to condense it.
I always think that people should be forewarned completely.
Yeah, but also it does
Just
say,
me.
at any time you can go onto the web, and you can read the whole traffic and parking ordinance. You can go onto the Tilton Police Department and read all that stuff, okay? So,
which
There
is
is a
what
population that doesn't have that access.
we're working on tonight.
but we're getting somewhere, because
For example,
No, I understand, but when we first had these applications, that's why I tackled it, what did you get with the application? A sticker, that's it.
right,
So the
I'm
people
I'm
that-
just saying.
So you're getting actually more now than you were getting before, because before you were getting nothing. You're at least getting what's pertained to you as a parking permit, is the ordinance, what I just try to condense. I mean, if you don't like to condense, that's why we're here to talk about it.
Well, I'm just one voice.
No, I understand.
I'm just 1/5.
In kind of in conjunction with what Catherine is saying on the parking permit. When we wrote the parking ordinance, we had to encompass the overnight parking as well as the residents that live without any vehicles, as well as the business owners that park where they're not supposed to park. So there was kind of 3 or 4 segments to our parking ordinance when we wrote it. So when you give out, if a business owner has employees that need stickers and go to the police department and get a sticker, what you give them in that 1 or 2 page, 1 page scenario, does that give them all the information that they need for parking on Main Street, not on Main Street, the direction that they need to go to, where to go when it's declared a winter maintenance emergency, so on and so forth. Everything that they need to know about 150%, as opposed to this document.
So what I did is, when I looked at the ordinance and I read through it, Beth and I read through, and then we sent that, and I tooth and went through it and made sure there's things in there that don't need to be in there and do need to be in there. Anything that's involved, that has parking involved at all, was put in there. Also, when you get the parking permit, you're obviously, there is the old map that we use. I wouldn't say old, but the downtown parking, that's going to be given them just like it's always has been. Yep, and then you have where do I park on the bottom, which then correlates to this map here, which is our ABC all the way, all the lots, and exactly where do I park. So they're going to be up to par with that. Try not to get off track here. So the permit, to answer your question, the parking permit that's revised from the traffic and parking ordinance is, as much as I could see in this one, if it's all correct and this is all we have, is condensed, and everything that's in here for parking is in this parking permit ordinance. What's that?
No, because you don't have.
No, I mean as in parking, not in traffic.
So just parking.
Just parking. Because a car is stopped, that's what they're paying for, is a parking permit. They need to know exactly where they can park, how long they can park there, and authority of the police, we have authority, if Kevin has authority, what else did we put in there? If you can see, we pretty much.
So you removed the traffic portion.
Yeah, we want to go through it. You look, definitions.
If we're going to do that,
Yep.
then this should be called something different.
Which it is.
Yeah.
It's called the parking permit ordinance as opposed to the traffic and parking ordinance.
Which is different.
That's why we're here to
Not different
revise that.
enough, I don't think.
Well,
Maybe Captain, we just think we call it traffic ordinance?
well,
Because it doesn't
Leave off the
contain
word.
both.
well, that's why.
Parking policy,
Well, it's the parking permit, so that's what we're dealing with, is parking permit, and then it's an ordinance for the parking permit.
parking permit ordinance.
We can just do plain and simple.
I'm just saying, enough different
Just
so that,
separate them.
and then if we're going to do that, it's not my preference, maybe some language that refers them to this other document.
There
so
is
they at
lang-
least know it
There
exists.
is language.
In here?
Maybe
There is language in one of those two documents that says, it refers to the traffic and
There
parking.
is language in
I
there.
don't know where it's
I
at.
didn't find it in here.
In the smaller one, there's
Yes.
language in the
In
bigger one.
smaller one, it says, go to the bigger one.
That's what we're going to have to do with the parking.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's why we thought about it, we're like, well, just make it simple. Parking permit ordinance. So if you look, are we looking for something right now, is that what we're doing?
I was just looking for a reference in this one to this, and I don't see it. Anyway.
So when we went down the line, as you can see, I have a kind of a list here, I actually brought that, the other two that to me. So the definitions, we obviously wanted was the parking, vehicle, downtown core area, the definitions, habitual offender, recreational vehicle. So, as you can see, we took out the street highway because there was no need to use everywhere place, and this is the public matter right away, people would travel, that would fall under, not parking. Roadway, sidewalk, we're not, I mean, people mostly know they're not supposed to park on a sidewalk, and I don't have any offenders that park on sidewalks, as in the lots, pertaining to the lots.
No, but on the streets.
On the streets you do.
I given tickets many, many times, I just rolled one last week, so. And that has nothing to do with
I
parking.
don't think there's any sidewalks in there, is there?
This is only the permit part.
Yes, exactly. So, as you go, turn the page, if you have them both, you can see we took out most of the definition, the language definition. So again, it's parking, for the parking ordinance is parking vehicle, downtown core area, habitual offender, and recreational vehicle. Everything else was taken out.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, was not taken out, but was.
Do I have the right information here? Because I'm looking at a habitual offender here. That's in here. You said you took it out.
No, those are the ones that were in there. So the definitions for the parking permit ordinance, the definitions we kept were parking, vehicle, downtown core area, habitual offender, and recreational vehicle.
In recreational vehicle. Got it.
Then we jump over to authority of police,
I need to know,
which,
as we keep jumping from one, the whole parking ordinance to the application is over here. Are we discussing the new proposed traffic and parking ordinance? Okay. And you're just referencing?
I'm just kind of going through it, we can just,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, so
Just
that
wanna
was the
make sure I was-
definitions, those are the definitions I added in there. I took out commercial motor vehicle, do not need commercial motor vehicle in parking.
Okay.
Okay? Took out that section there, which would be 16, number 16 on the traffic mark ordinance.
Slow down just a little bit.
Great. I have number 16 in here. You said you just took it out.
He's referencing.
Okay, which thing are we talking about? Don't jump from one to the other.
Right, right.
Thank you.
No, and what I'm trying to do is they want to know, or you guys want to know what was taken out and what was left in. No, not at all. You just want to know, then this is what it is then. This is condensed version, just as it is. Black and white, just as it is. We
So,
took this and
what you have done is you've taken the parking out of our original ordinance, put it over here by itself, and I'm gonna say with the permitting, and then this is more traffic.
That's a separate issue
But it still
altogether.
has, it
But
still,
it still has some parking stuff.
Yes, it does, because this here, this is the ordinance
Yes.
that it's being pulled out of, so.
That stays.
It
That
stays.
That is set in stone.
Don't, please
That
no,
is locked
please no,
in.
no,
Okay.
please no, oh, trust me, I'm so confused.
No,
Is this the document we're
so
working on?
it's like,
Yes, this is the
let's
old.
say it's like
No.
a purple
Is this the
dress.
document
This
we're
is-
working on?
No, that's the new, that made the
This is
proposal.
the old.
Right, this is
Okay.
proposed.
I get
This
it,
is not proposed.
probably-
This
I
is-
get it.
This
Okay.
document in a Google format.
No, it isn't.
Oh, I got a good one.
Because there's things missing.
This pretty much
It's
looks
the same thing.
the
There's
same
language
letterhead,
missing.
same thing.
Chief,
We have.
how do we
for example,
enforce the
in
2-hour
the,
parking downtown?
ADA parking. Parking.
I suggested we go.
Well, how do you determine a car's been there for over 2 hours?
selectmen,
So we
scammer, thank God, there's no.
What's your method?
Well, the way we would usually do it was chalking.
No,
but
we
as you
took
can
out of
see-
ADA.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I knew
We
you
all
were
did
saying
find that out.
Okay.
Jesse about that.
Yeah.
Language.
Well,
in
it's
here.
Sixth Circuit, so I don't know if it's gonna get appealed that way.
I think another, someone else will bump it. and then-
Jesse's monitoring it.
Back to this document.
Somewhere in
can I
It
here.
just-
says traffic and parking ordinance amended May,
Okay,
comma, 2019. Can we go page by page?
okay.
And,
I didn't remove
yes,
anything.
can I
You
just
didn't remove anything.
Nothing. All
So,
I did was
just-
reformat it.
as a refresher,
Because we had a limit on ADA
they came to you with the
parking.
application 2 weeks
This
ago.
was on the
Y'all
other side.
approved that. Last week, they came to you with the parking permit ordinance that goes with the application. You approved that, but you asked Abe to make some very minor changes. That's what's in your to-be-signed file. That's done. Now what we're working on is the traffic and parking ordinance, and that's what you should be focused on tonight.
Let's
Everything
just
else
put
is
all the
done.
other papers aside and let's go page by page and we can approve this.
Yes.
Okay.
This particular
Okay.
document with the blue letterhead and the red markings in it is the document that is on the website. All I did was reformat it into a Google Doc and put the strike through. It's exactly
The same.
the same, I didn't change a thing. All I did was
So the
reformat
wordings that we heard was
every-
took out and replaced and everything. Let's put that aside and go forward and go through the documents page by page.
Excellent.
Sounds great. Now we're all on the same page.
You'll catch up.
Page 1,
Page 1.
first point, can we drop of 2019? It's the traffic and parking ordinance. When you say of 2019, it's like, well, 2020, has it changed?
That's good.
And then
Yep.
down bottom, last amended with the amended date.
Well, no, John wanted the footer on there so we know which draft we're working on.
I understand when it goes final, last amended, and if you want, on the last page, you can put the dates of all the other amendments.
Okay, so we have definitions,
Thank you.
which we've approved in the past, and we know what they are, and they've not been changed. Second
We still have
page.
commercial motor vehicle in there.
It's on the next page.
That's the original traffic ordinance.
Second page is the original. Nothing's been changed.
So my only question is, where did we end up under 13? Is it railroad track to railroad track, or are we staying to Winter Street? I don't care, but we went,
Last thing I heard was winter, right, everybody?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what we
we
agreed.
changed.
I just wanted to make sure.
Good point, though.
Well, because like you said, you wanted that overnight parking and it mixes all in with
Yeah.
the downtown, so you don't have to change the language or mess around with it.
Good.
All right, third page. Sorry, John, I'm kind of taking charge a little bit here so we can move.
We're just gonna
While you
grab the
catch
horns
up.
any second now.
Go for it.
It's sort of kind of moving along, though. All right, and there's no changes on page 3, moving along to page 4.
Because those are all just RSA definitions.
Yeah.
Page 4. So Sunday's the Wild Wild West, we can do anything? Monday through Saturday?
That's what we had.
Is that what we want?
G1, is that what you're looking at, G1?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I need to stop and add to the confusion.
You're looking at the ordinance, you don't mess yourself up.
Yep,
looking at that.
nope. I'm gonna add to the confusion because I looked at this. Because this is one of the points I was gonna make. So if this is all about parking, then why did we leave F out? Which is all about parking. Isn't it?
We have F in.
Park vehicles as right side wheels closest to the curb. At any place where official traffic signs have been erected prohibited standing, parking, or loading or unloading.
That doesn't apply to parking permits necessarily.
Right, correct.
I understood that we took
The other one
everything
is
about
parking
parking
permits.
and put it in this.
Permits.
Well, we went through that with a fine tooth comb and parked on the right side with the wheels close to the curb, that has nothing to do with a parking permit in a lot.
Okay.
The town adopts the provisions, any kind of parking on the sidewalk, that has something
Okay.
that's totally different, so that's.
Thank
why
you.
we did it. Yep.
We can accept that explanation.
Okay, page
4.
4, parking regulations, Monday through Saturday. There will be no enforcement of time-restricted spaces on Sundays and holidays. That's what we had approved
Back then,
back then.
right?
I mean, it's up to another public hearing or whatever to change that, but nothing's been changed. So page 5 is where we find a change. And it's all tickets will be assessed a $30 late fee if not paid within 7 days. Which is this, just a language change around from what was there. I can accept
Still
that.
7 days.
Yep,
And handicap is just a definition.
yep. And then page 6, it's downtown defined as Main Street from 235 East Main by the railroad tracks to West Main at Winter.
Should we gonna tap on at all right now? I mean, we're here, we're talking about the boot. I just don't want to get further down than 6. The boot, for some reason, is added into the handicap section.
So we gotta go back.
So you leave in the handicap at $250, period. And then the next line, the total user has the total place and mobilizing device, so on and so on, which is the boot.
That's where you would add it?
No, that's.
We don't have one, right? Is that what you're?
We don't have a boot, but
We
it
don't
shouldn't
have a
go
boot,
there
but it's
anyway.
in- But it's in the language, so which is good. I'd like to get a boot. That's something I've been saying for years. But also, we might want to make a section for that and then maybe tune that up a little bit. Because just throwing it under handicap, I don't think
Couldn't
it's
that,
lost.
wouldn't that go under
Yeah.
penalties
Exactly.
somehow?
It actually, I don't want to jump around, but
It does.
that was going to go, if it was going to go on this form here, or the condensed portion, that's where I'd want in the penalties.
Yes.
Seems like that would definitely be a penalty.
Peter?
K1, overnight parking. I think we need to put in the exemption for onions because they don't fall under it. And the way I'm reading it, if it's, 235 East Main by the railroad over to Winter, that would include his area.
How would you
Since
like
that's
to
a
word it?
different deal, it should be spelled out in the ordinance, I would say.
Well, they would be exempt anyway because it's private parking.
Well, you're
Yeah, but
parking,
it's
you're
not.
parking on Main Street in the
Those
downtown
spaces-
district.
Those spaces are yeah, I can't talk. still under the authority of the Board of Selectmen.
We maintain them. We don't
Well,
plow them,
we-
but if they get repaved.
So, we could tonight, I'm not suggesting it, absolutely not, take those back as public parking.
In the original agreement?
Mhm.
I've never seen the original agreement. I thought the original agreement said they go to Joanne Oliver at the time, that she maintained them, she does, whatever does,
Mhm.
and they're in the property and ownership of.
But that was a decision made by the Board of Selectmen.
But
That decision can be on.
was it a temporary ownership that she
There
made?
was no permanency to it.
We
Okay.
did- I can't believe the town granted ownership
No.
of 5 parking spaces on downtown.
So,
Temporary
I
ownership.
think John makes a, yeah, John, Peter.
Yeah.
Sorry. Peter makes a good point.
Uh-huh.
Somehow we should show
It's not a permanent ownership, yeah.
that those are,
They have an exclusive
They have an
right there,
exclusive right.
which keeps them out of the parking ordinance, so they're exempt from it.
Well, yeah, now you come into a different one because it's actually, it's a bed and breakfast. I mean, it's a hotel, people come and pay money to sleep there and park there. Now you come into a different type of issue.
So we need to go and also accommodate for overnight parking in another area than for our, for Onions in the Tilton area.
But what if I'm handicapped and come and come to buy a room at Onions, and where do I park?
Well, we just so happen to have somebody that might have some insight
Oh.
and suggestions towards that
Alan's here, I
tonight.
mean, that,
Alan,
it's an issue.
you must have some ideas.
Sorry, I'm late, couldn't find a parking spot.
So,
Okay.
what do you need for parking, and what you...
Oh, whoa.
Seeing you asked.
For parking, what would you like to see, and we'll see what we can accommodate for you, I think, and work in.
My 5 spots, I'm quite happy there. As far as the in guests, I would love to purchase from the town something they can hang right on their mirror with a date. So it could be $1 each, I'll have them printed with a date and how many nights they're staying, and potentially use opposite for overnight where the town parking is for
Municipal.
municipal lot. So I have 10 rooms, so potentially 10 cars for overnight.
would they, so some of us get here at 7, would they be out of there by 7?
They wouldn't be in your.
They're not in your
they wouldn't be
parking.
on
No, it'd be
on
the opposite
side.
side.
Oh, the other side?
Yes.
Yeah, the Patty Cohen side.
Oh,
And
okay, thank
obviously, in
you.
the wintertime, we are not anywhere near as busy. If all goes planned this year, I will take the garage across the street and actually give them some indoor parking, so there is no problem with snow removal or anything else. So they're not any kind of an issue there.
Well, that kind of resolves the issue.
You guys could accommodate some type of permit that could be
I
issued
I
on
can
that
work
basis.
with you.
Yeah.
I can work with you on that and get something and it can be numbered so that
And then
we
would
have
you-
an accountability.
Okay, and who would have those? After we make those, who would have those?
He'll have them made up.
I'll have them made up
Okay.
and numbered so that you have a copy of it, so you'll know, and each person will hang it
Okay.
on their mirror. I will instruct them to park over there on the left.
And then you will
Obviously,
hand them those placards.
Correct, and it will be,
Numbered and
you
everything.
know,
and then-
checking in this date,
Yeah. Okay.
2 nights, 1 night, 3 nights. And it's only summertime really that we run into problems. We do have in front of the shop over there. I do apologize for not buying the other building, but slipped through the hands very quickly, and it was just too late. It was a shame. I mean, I saved money on it because I was going to offer them a lot more than what they paid. So,
Does that mean you wouldn't use the spaces in front of the inn as overnight at all?
yes, I would.
Okay, so we still need some
Those
language.
are what, 6 spaces, right?
Five
So
spaces.
Five, we take one out, is the old map on Google
No.
Maps shows 6.
Then
Well, we
Six, but one
own-
is the town's.
Okay. so
We
that-
own one of
But the
them.
very-
Why we own one of them is beyond me,
See, and I
because
never
it's
even-
like,
honestly didn't even know.
what is it
so
used
I
for?
just let cars actually park all those 6. That are pretty much in my mind, and I tell trainees, anybody that's parked this way in front of Town Hall Onions is good to
Thank
go.
you.
I think for years they felt that way, Abe.
After that's done.
I-
I haven't been here my whole life, but I've been.
Oh, we almost reduced it to 4, I heard.
Joe?
Hey, how you
Did
doing?
reduce it to
Do you have a copy of the agreement that transfers ownership of those spots to you?
Do I have a copy? I do not.
There wasn't an agreement, it was a selectmen's.
So that somewhere there's something that says he's the owner of those spaces.
No,
Then why do we keep using the word owner?
No,
I don't know
he
why,
has
because I
rights.
don't use it.
I've
He has
heard
the
owner
right.
half a dozen
He has the
times
right.
here.
Exclusive use to them.
Okay, I got that. But the word owner keeps coming up.
No, it's a right,
The Roonies.
similar to like beach rights. He's
So-
got a right
Why would,
to these lots.
Hang on, I think we have a copy of the document right here.
I know, can I ask Catherine a question?
Sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, you may.
Catherine, do you remember why they only gave 5 out of the 6 instead of just,
That's all she asked for.
Can
I
I make a
don't-
suggestion for the 6th? That we turn that into handicap, because there is
Doesn't
no,
qualify.
there is, it doesn't?
There's a lot more to it.
Because
The
it's
state
way
might
up
not.
now.
Because you gotta have that tip down and you've gotta have that space.
And you get the sidewalk, I mean, you get the crosswalk right there.
Yeah.
As you come out of it.
Because we tried to make one out front. And we tried to make one out here, but they wouldn't let us.
however, if you pushed the 5 down and made the handicap on the opposite end, they may approve that.
You've got a telephone pole right in the way,
I can take care of that.
down at the end.
So,
Could we ask if they...
If you were gonna make, this is
Chief.
what they said to us, the lady from the Governor's Council on Disability had come up.
Yes.
Oh, I did bring that file. And what she said was, we'd lose a space. In order to make a handicap, you will lose a space. Or the crosswalk. And we shouldn't use the crosswalk, because that's one busy crosswalk.
We can,
Like, what's the regulation for a standard, does anybody know?
We-
For a
Yeah.
standard parking
I
spot
would
and
love
then a
to see
handicap spot?
the town move the crosswalk over to where that telephone
They won't do
Then they
that.
lose
The
the,
state won't do that.
then they lose the haven of the trough out there to have a safe place to
Right.
stop.
pole. When you get out in the trough, and it's like a desert island out there.
Yeah.
You never get past that.
I think we're gonna have a whole separate work session just for that. Crosswalks and handicap.
But Chief,
As far
can
as
you,
doing the parking
can you
ordinance.
kind of mull that
how
over
can we-
and see
that
if
would
the
accommodate
feasibility
you?
is?
I think you guys just got a full
Yeah.
tape,
You'll
like
be
that,
the-
know your parameters and how much room you have to that telephone pole, swinging the car out.
What is the width, Catherine? 14
I
feet?
just- And you also have to make the tip down on the sidewalk.
But if you're abutting a
Joe?
drive, you can do the hash marks and come out into the drive.
They're supposed to be on the driver's side, I believe.
Joe?
According to the minutes of 10/19/06, it does say that Selectman Dawson said that it appears that Joanna Oliver has shown grandfathered rights to some parking spaces. That's the only reference in this to those parking spaces being any kind of property of anybody else.
Except when I was talking about that, it wasn't to grandfathered rights to property, but that the inn had previously also had exclusive use of those granted by the Board of Selectmen.
And that's the piece of paper that I would like to see, just to see it. Apparently, there has to be something in writing. There has to be.
There isn't.
Well, then that's null and void. How do you enforce something that, well, we've always done it this way?
Because you have a selectmen's.
It says it appears as though she's grandfathered. Appears at some spaces. That's it.
Selectmen second the motion, all were in favor, right?
Well, that's it.
Selectmen made a motion, they voted.
But not on this, it doesn't say anything about what is the underlying piece of paper.
Right.
There has to be
No.
an underlying
There
piece of
This
paper.
is something that we need to talk about at another time, because we've only got 25 minutes to get
So
through
back
this.
to the parking
So
ordinance.
we have, so I looked it up,
Yeah.
it looks like, we did obviously not do a van handicap, it would be a standard handicap parking spot. Because a van would be 11 feet wide, plus the 5 feet that you need for the
16
access
feet.
aisle.
Right.
So you're looking at 8 feet for passive parking for a regular vehicle with 5 feet wide.
Okay,
So you're looking
so
at 13
what I think we want to do is stick to get through the ordinance, and then that's going to be another project.
Yep,
So-
no, I'm just
And
saying,
look
if they
into
wanted
that.
to take that out.
They may
see if
be
it
together.
worked.
So why don't the three of you take that and
Yep.
talk about it, and then come back into us at another
You can
time?
keep that if you want.
How's that?
Yep.
I
Great.
have it in,
And you guys will
I
figure out
have it
that
in,
tax.
But
I
that
haven't
sticker
announced
Does anything
program,
have to be mentioned in this document referring to those tags and the location of those, parking for those?
can I make
It's-
a comment
it's
on
in the-
traffic regulations since we went to overnight parking?
Jeannie had a comment on what
I
John
think
said.
you were asking that there was no reference to where you put because that is in, the discussion was, I think, prior to you got here. So if you remember, you approved the application, and then last week you approved the parking permit
Yeah,
ordinance.
and that has,
And-
actually, my question would, I should rephrase it then. The location of the spots that you'll be using, should that be mentioned on here?
The,
Circles back to
For
Peter's
my
statement.
extra,
Yes.
I can
Oh.
deal with the chief on that, and he can come report.
I think that needs to be a separate agreement.
Mm.
With onions, you're talking about specific with
But-
onions?
I understand that
With the
location where they
ticket.
would put the tag on the car,
Right, and that's in
in
your
Permit.
permit.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's in the
But
permit,
where
right.
you go park, and if you should designate that, should be probably in here.
It just says, except spaces approved by the Board of Selectmen, which are exempt from this.
I think you're talking about two different
Yeah.
things.
About the same reference to Peter's statement.
No,
No?
John is talking about where the sticker on the vehicle goes.
All those.
No, I'm not. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. I am saying that the vehicle, you're asking for additional possible 10 spaces that you could possibly use,
To
variable.
identify those.
Designate where those are.
Gotcha.
Should those be in here too? And say, except for those which are allowed use by,
No,
that's not what
I
I
think
said.
you could just say that you could say that it's in that lot, well, that's what he's asking for, it's in that lot, but it can't be where the municipal parking, or the
that's an
employee
agreement
parking.
between the Board of Selectmen and onions.
Mm.
That's not in an ordinance.
Good point.
So it shouldn't be in
Good
the
point.
ordinance. It
Yep.
should be,
Except for those spots then are vulnerable to being ticketed if you don't put the exception here, because it says from there to there.
not the exception that John is specifically asking for, Peter. You could put a general exception in, with the exception, like the chief said, with the exception that the Board of Selectmen have made. And you can repeat what you just said, chief.
Right, to, except for those spaces that are exempt from this ordinance.
Right.
Approved by the Board of Selectmen.
And then you can,
You're not going to identify them, you're going to leave it a mystery, so someone looking, how the heck do I know? Why don't we just say the 5 lots, 5 parking spaces in front of whatever number Alan's building is, and then any officer will know, oh, these are the exempt ones. It's not rocket science, and it's right out black and white. If there's others that come down the way, you add them in
Right.
when they happen.
So let's come up with some language and you can show
Yeah.
it to us and we'll say yes or
That's
no.
easy. And then we can list them.
Okay.
I do agree.
Overnight parking, if I could just touch on another thing also, we have 5 spots in front of 251 Main Street, which is right here. Okay, there's no signage at all that says anything about overnight parking, but yet we're supposed to, the PD is supposed to enforce that. By law, we can't to be a sign on the pole. It had nothing for you,
I still have that sign.
and so it's off now, so I give people warnings there. Because technically,
Should there be a sign further down by Mechanic Street?
yeah, so I'm
So when
saying
you're
it's
coming into it,
either
instead of
or.
after the fact?
Either or, it just needs to be a sign. There's no-
Are we
there's no
talking
sign
about
at
the,
all. There
are
used
we
to be
still
a sign.
talking about in front of Onions?
No, 251 Main Street.
So the
From
gray building?
Mechanic Street over.
The 5
Okay, got it.
spots.
The 5 spots in front of there.
Yeah.
So we need to put signs there. So we need to write that down for Kevin, that needs to be no
You
overnight
just need to
parking.
find a right way to do it, that it's not going to impede the parking or the snow removal in that area, because I know they pile up the snow, and that's how they kind of do that area, so you go and put a sign.
Right,
There must be a telephone pole down
There was, and that's what the sign used to be on, was no overnight
mean-
parking.
There must be a
Right.
next one down. Was it crosses?
Well, that particular
Is it?
Yep.
pole,
Yep.
I have that pole sitting out back because it sat with the screws
Oh,
sticking
the sign,
up.
you mean, the sign's out,
The
you have
whole-
that?
the whole
Oh,
thing.
It got knocked
Was
over.
knocked over
Isn't that
during
why
snow
those-
plowing one time.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm, yeah. the
And it
plowing
was
thing.
laying on the ground with the screws sticking up, and someone was gonna come along and go through their foot, and then the town would have a lawsuit.
How's the condition of that sign?
Perfect. So I picked it up and moved it on the side. It's on the side of my building. All still intact.
So I'll get with Kevin and have to put that sign or signs in that area, is that correct?
What's that?
They have Kevin replace the sign. That would be
Just get with-
almost getting there.
Is
Are we
one
going
sign,
backwards under traffic regulations?
Chief, is one sign enough, or should you have one at each end, like no parking from here to here signs?
That wouldn't hurt.
It's just a problem of finding a spot on the other end to place it.
By
Well,
Nisha.
you're right, you're gonna go by it for one, and then you're gonna be confused because his parking, his spots, and people go, well, they're parking there, so why
That would
can't I
definitely
park
help.
here?
That's
So you almost need right where that
Mhm.
pole is, that's
Correct.
where it stops, and then to where mechanic,
Right,
and those are 5 spots.
that'd be better.
Yeah.
So
Good
that's
point.
from mechanic to 251 Main?
Yes,
Yeah.
right to the pole where Onions parking spots change their direction.
Okay. Next.
covered that.
So you wanna go backwards?
We're at page 6K still? Well,
J.
we jumped.
J,
J.
Catherine wants to go back to J.
J, because I forgot. Number 1 under J, time limits for handicap parking shall be 1 hour in excess of the regular time limits. But the minimum time limit for ADA parking, I believe, is 4 hours. So we have handicapped spaces where we have 2-hour parking, so they could actually park for 5 hours, not 3. And
How do you get to 5?
because they get 1 hour in excess of the posted parking, but we also have to post that.
We should add that language to our ordinance as
Yep.
well.
Well, it has to be on the sign.
I'm laughing at this one, because when this went into effect, Catherine was adamantly opposed to this portion of it,
Well, now I
As
want
we
it to be
said.
right.
because we actually had to look up the Governor's Commission on Disability.
And I tried to do that today to see, because RSA 265:74, I'll tell you, you know this.
She's absolutely right.
That's the ordinance that talks about
Mm-hmm,
disability parking.
right.
Have it.
But they say right in it that each city or town shall have the discretion to set the time periods using guidelines
Right.
which shall be provided by the Governor's Council or Commission on Disability. Well, if you go to that website, it has changed dramatically. There's a lot of information up there. So I sent them an email asking them what their minimum was, because I'm pretty sure the federal ADA is 4 hours.
I don't think there is a limit now with the state. Because in Concord, if you go down to the handicap, I asked a policeman, and they said there's no limits on the handicap.
Well, Concord may not have set a limit, but the, each,
So we're gonna have to research that one, right? I don't think we can come up with the number tonight.
Yeah.
Which is
it can't say 1 hour in excess of the regular time limits, I'm pretty sure.
We originally wanted it unlimited, and then we decided that it was going to be the 1 hour on.
Remember, we had an issue,
Yeah, we did. We had a big issue on it.
24 hours a day?
So when I had the
So
RSA,
J1 will be
we
researched.
just need to fix that on.
Got it. Okay, we're down to K.
Yep. Okay, page 7.
And here's where we change the notification methods.
Yeah.
On page 7.
M1,
Yeah.
M1,
Yeah.
residents,
I'm
business,
still-
or employees of the downtown area, regardless of whether they have parking available on those properties. Shouldn't there be an exemption if, because when we say the downtown area, does that include these Mechanic Street and some of these streets?
Yeah.
So what's stopping from someone with parking in their yard taking up those spots? To me, it should be for the places that don't have the parking.
Yeah, that's something we never added when we did the original one. I'm knowing something about it.
Which,
So if you live on Mechanic, you may choose to use a lot instead of your driveway scenario.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we just need to add some more in.
yeah, something to the effect, residents, business, or employees whose properties don't provide parking may apply for the long-term parking.
We have a real issue with that.
Yes, we
Because
do.
people that apply for it, they don't go into their driveways, they go into the municipal and save their parking for their guests that
That's right.
come and visit.
That's right. So I need to go backwards again to K.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay?
Broadcasting of the ban shall be in the following manner.
Yeah.
And I assume Public Works Director has approved this, but are we limiting us?
It-
Could it say,
No, right?
but not, in the following manner, but not limited to? Because,
On L, right? You stuck on L, okay, right? So-
oh, Al, I'm sorry, yeah.
So you're saying that in the following manner, but not limited to, add that piece.
Just add, but not
We can
limited
do that,
to.
yeah.
Shall include but not limited to?
Yeah.
Yep, I like that.
Yep.
Northfield Tilton Talking is a good spot.
That's what I was thinking.
Get a lot of information. Andy Buto.
Sometimes too much.
do we always use the variable message board?
Well, we don't always, but I think we're using it more that we have it, is that correct?
When it's warm.
Because
In the
it
winter,
says,
we don't use it.
because it says broadcasting.
Yeah.
Winter snow removal, we don't.
Okay, it says broadcasting of the ban shall be in the following manner, so we have to use the variable message board if that's in there. And we say we shall do it.
I mean, I don't think there's any reason why we can't use very much, but I think we just have to find a spot to put that in the winter time where it stays put. We put it as the fall, and then it stays kind of like how Franklin has theirs. They're lucky to have
So change the language.
AutoZone to use the, people in
so-
Franklin, it says it, so.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at is
Just in a-
that if somebody looked downtown, they parked down there, they didn't see variable message board because we didn't set it up for that one parking ban, they could park there. Technically, it'd say, I didn't see the sign,
And you
so
just take out the shall be.
shall,
When practical.
Not shall.
May,
We will notify by the
Maybe in the
following.
following manner.
May.
yeah,
I like May.
yeah.
May if it was warmer.
Well, your other problem, John, with only one, I came in the other way, I didn't see any more. It was on the other end of the,
You
That's
may.
always the problem, is I've always said that, like, we do find a spot and say,
Permission
come to the
to-
farm, it's nice enough to let us do something right there,
Giving
and we
them
have it.
permission.
And we keep it there the whole winter, and that's what we use while they're coming in this way, but they're not getting from Park Street, not coming from West Main, so.
And look at now, page 8, no changes.
Okay, so 7, right, page 7?
Catherine, are we on 7?
I'm on 8.
Oh my God, okay.
That means you can't go back to 7.
Oh, you can always go back. It's not the same way.
Let's clear 7,
Aye.
everybody's good with
Nothing's
7.
changed.
Yep.
You're just a nice guy.
How long is a guest pass used for?
Up to 72 hours. that a test? Yes. I was wondering, if I just turned the page and saw it right there, so I was wondering if she was testing it.
So on M1,
Was,
so they have to show proof of residency of the downtown area or just proof of residency of,
That's a good question.
and that's where we get to, so that's our brought
That's
the other
what
week
we were
is,
talking about.
I could go get a sticker myself and park my car down here for the,
That was last week's, yeah, and I kind of touched with different people.
How to get
people have
that.
Different ideas, some people are like, oh, that's Tilton, why can't I park my vehicle downtown? And then I'd say, well, there's only so many places, spots to park, and also, a lot of them places do not give you a driveway, just like we said there, street, stuff like that. I think if you live in the immediate downtown core area, and then we have to define that also, which your downtown core area is Academy, Academy, so we have to really define if you live downtown, as in downtown.
I mean,
Are you
the only
having
exception too
problems
is if
now?
there was an emergency on School Street.
There are no issues now.
Direct them to park downtown or walk up.
I just asked Abe if they're having problems now with that issue, and he said no.
No,
So,
we
well, we wouldn't know really, but, you know, it would be nice to go and limit, it, just as if, many, many years ago, lived in Boston for a while, and if you parked in that areas, you had to have a back bay or a, you know, south end parking or something like that, so. And you had to actually be a resident right in there, that area.
what's stopping, like, for my tenant, for having a trailer? I have no place to put it in my yard, but went and got a sticker and said, okay.
We did address trailers
Trailers we did
and
address.
commercial vehicles.
So he parks the trailer at my house and parks his vehicle down here.
No, without a placard.
I know, $15 for storage for,
But, yes, we already talked about changing that, so that wouldn't take place, so. You're gonna
We did
come
talk
up
about
with,
it,
you're gonna
yeah.
come up with verbiage for that.
It's still a thinking cap thing.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, I mean, we,
Yeah, go ahead.
while we're here.
That you get the landlord who owns the apartment where they're living, a separate, that he signs off on, which brings in another avenue of, I'm a resident here. Now, here's my lease, or here's the signed tenancy that I live here.
I feel like when we talked about this last week, we had defined what downtown is,
Yeah.
and then it seemed like we're heading towards, the stickers would be provided to residents that live in that definition.
put it in the residence, under residency, signed, like a signed affidavit from the tenant, from the landlord.
Well, it's hard enough to get in touch with landlords, so.
Just making sure the verbiage says.
But when they come in for their permit, their sticker, if they don't have that, they don't get a sticker.
Right.
So
They
they
need
go
like
back
an
to their
electric
landlord.
bill or something now. I mean, they have to prove they lived in one of the units.
Correct,
One J.
Already.
But where are they located still?
correct.
J home.
So are we gonna make a list
Located,
of actual apartment buildings
That's what I'm-
that can use those spaces? And they would have to belong?
That's
I
the
think we
problem,
talked about that last week.
Yeah, I think that's a problem, and the chief says, you know, downtown core area, but does that mean the immediate road stretching the core area on each side, not bleeding into Academy Street back? I know that maybe you're looking at me like, it's obvious, but sometimes it's not obvious. So I just want to make sure we define that,
The other thing to do, maybe get a map and a highlighter, a lot,
really?
come up with it as defined by map.
Do we,
I'm trying to think of the other people, School Street, right here.
so it would be
I think we're gonna have
Academy.
to list the buildings, the addresses.
So Academy Street, they could be using the Lot A,
There are a couple cars that have
That
bought
do.
tickets that use, I mean, it's not a problem. I
right?
don't think it's a problem because there's, let's just say, there's a certain vehicle that parks on the road in the wintertime, they don't have a spot. I mean, it's kind of paved, but the tires are on the travel portion of the road. So technically, they're in the roadway and they're parking on the way, which is subject to the winter parking ban. So now they park down below and they use that over the train tracks and they walk up by the water department and they park for the residents there. So so that's what we have to define, that building, this building, that building, and then define it in the ordinance itself.
Right, your
Highlight it.
example's 9 dash 11.
Yes, correct.
As long as we
Because
can
Catherine's
enforce
idea
it,
was
so
No,
whatever.
no, it's not bad. That's why we're here, trying to brainstorm.
Identifying the addresses.
We have not had any issues with it, but for you to enforce it, if that's what it takes to define it in here, then we should do it.
I agree.
Clean up.
Okay. Do you put anything on there for penalties for transferring of stickers? Or revoking? So
As-
somebody gets a sticker and says, hey,
Yeah,
they're
actually,
giving it to you.
the cap mentioned that.
Well, the problem is like I said, when I first presented this last week, the stickers that I purchased they only stay adhesive for about 10 seconds. You can move them, and if it's got that, off to the side, you can stick it. Once it is good, it's not going to leave any residue, but you have to use just a blade to get your nail in and peel it off. No more sticky adhesive. Now you see that there is going to be tape used to hold that sticker down, which isn't going to be a problem. And yes, then we would probably have to put some kind of verbiage in there stating that we found a sticker that someone's misusing. Now,
Misuse the stickers,
this
could
is a
revoke.
sticker. Yeah.
Yeah, the cap that suggests is just a kind of generic sentence
In the font.
Yep.
that
Revoke privileges or something, whatever you
Yes.
think would be appropriate.
And then also you have to
yours is
investigate.
in violation of this ordinance, parking permit ordinance.
Yep.
In violation are subject to having the permit revoked. What's his suggestion? So we can add that.
Because we bought the stickers weren't, I don't know the exact price on those stickers, but they weren't crazy. We actually bought more just in case someone gets a new vehicle. You buy a new vehicle, now we gotta take the sticker off, and we don't want you to replace the sticker with tape or anything like that. We want you to come down and get another sticker, you show us that you obviously have one, you come in, hey, I just bought a new vehicle, here's my new registration. My other vehicle, I pulled the sticker off it, or whatever, I need a new sticker, and they don't have to pay for a new sticker, they'll just get a new sticker replaced.
Now, I had to work someplace where I had to have the sticker, and when they gave you the sticker, they peeled back a little bit of the sticker, and they wrote with a Sharpie your plate number on it, and peeled it back. So when on your window, that's facing there, so that prevents anybody from,
What's good with those stickers is we do have them numbered, so then all I have to do is do dispatch,
That
sticker number, this is plate number, do they have a parking sticker? Yes, they do. What is the number on the book, it's number 6, there's now a number 4 on it.
and
That would be
just,
wrong.
the idea was that
Or they
you
don't.
wouldn't have to call anybody, you could look at the sticker and look at the plate, that one's good, that's good, and
No, you're right, but that would be like
Let's
any
see.
vehicle, I mean, we run plates all the time because of that issue. There could be a sticker on there, I can just go all night long, not use a radio or look at it, just drive through and say, yep, they have a sticker, they have a sticker, they have a sticker, they have a sticker, good to go. But then you run the plates and you look into it as an investigation.
Right.
And you find out maybe there's only 30% of those that are good, and the rest are someone swapping stickers.
Yep.
So, I mean, there probably is a way you could do something like that, kind of like
Right,
it
right.
did, but it'd be, I mean, to write it down, I don't know, like, the material, how to write it down with a Sharpie and.
Yeah, try it
the
out.
sun, and-
try it out when you get, just Sharpie, because it's way,
But also, we have dispatch that's now 16-hour dispatch, so I have to keep busy and use the radio.
keep
so-
them awake.
Well,
I think you
they're
guys
busy,
keep them
but-
awake anyway.
But I think they like to just, do all that stuff, so that's what they do. so.
I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
So you're gonna
Anybody
go
else?
back and
Tom?
make the corrections?
You got any comments or anything on the parking other than?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
Yes, I do.
Right.
I'm on page 8. Handicap parking lots B and G, B and F. No time limit except during snow emergencies. But we have time limits on our handicap parking.
Oh, that's where there's no time limits. Remember I said that we made
Yeah.
it no time limits?
So it,
We deliberately had done
one
that.
contradicts the other.
Yep,
Yes.
If you want to change it.
yep,
There needs to be time limits on the handicap because there's so few of them.
right.
Okay.
And then, and I brought this up, I don't know if it was last week, but Lot A, the old post office, Currently, that is resident and resident guest parking only. I'm on page 8.
Lot A, you said?
Yep. So every day, that's being violated. And when we have events in town, that's being violated.
What is this?
So you're saying, yeah, that sentence needs to be updated.
So,
I agree. Because it's just municipal parking during the day. If
Right.
that's how you want it.
Exactly, you do,
Yeah, I think
I don't see
because we refer everyone to it.
residents and guests, Tilton issued parking sticker or guest pass required. Lot A. Required.
Well,
Lot A.
it doesn't say only is what I'm saying.
But it says the sticker is required to park there.
Overnight.
No, it doesn't say that.
If you said overnight, then you'd be okay. If you said Lot A, B, and C, overnight only, Tilton issued parking sticker for overnight parking only required,
Yeah, it says
then you'd be covered.
It says VC, lots E, F, entire lot, riverfront, F, and then at the very end, riverfront park use only during park hours, so yes. So probably after that, B and C,
Add that.
overnight.
Right,
That's a
So
good
just-
update.
right.
Yep.
It's a good-
Exactly, cleans
What's
it
good
up.
is I only have 2 that park there, so that's a good thing. So.
But not during the day, there's not only two.
Right.
I'm sleeping during the day, so.
So
And
there's
Catherine
no
is
guessing.
absolutely right. You
I
don't,
think we should add a little bit of language that says during the day it's for municipal parking.
right, because we
Or
use
public
that as
parking
overflow
or-
for Riverfront, we use it for overflow for Tilton House, we use it
Highway, I mean, the Halloween downtown.
Halloween,
all that. Yep.
Any
That's
event.
great.
street fair, everything.
On page 8, where do I park? It says Main Street, free parking on Main Street up to 2 hours. The section in front of, well, where True Green drove in the river,
Yes.
that has 2 hours now. There's nobody ever parking there, and
Just fish, really, I think.
So, yeah, fishing.
if we expanded it to 4, or don't even put any limit on it except for the overnight. And,
I agree with that.
you know, that would allow for employees
To be able to use
to
it.
be able to use that, which gets them away from parking where the 2-hour people would be parking.
And like, keep-
But then you have,
Using that lane
but
too.
when we,
The
when
speed
we
lane.
first initiated the parking ordinance, the reason why, that's exactly the reason why we did not, we put a time limit on it, so that employees would not park there all day long, because we do have a regular amount of people that bring their families down there to fish for a couple hours and come back, and you're never gonna get a parking space there. And there's one gentleman that's handicapped that comes down with his son in a wheelchair. The son's handicapped. They park in front for an hour or two, and park there and get out and fish right from there. So if you have people that are downtown in where the salon is, T-Hop employees, or employees from Riverfront, River Place and all of that, park there from 8 to 5, you're not gonna have that access. You're gonna take that access away.
You have like 12 spots there.
I can say that every time I've driven by that spot,
Mhm.
in that section, I rarely see a single car parking there. And I understand the predicament with the fellow who wants to fish occasionally up there, but we do have handicap parking spaces at the thing with pavilions and handicap accessible stuff there now, that they're not being utilized.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to get in and out of there too.
And you have to, if you're
With
handicapped,
traffic.
get on Main Street. And
Well-
the other thing is it does turn into a speed lane because nobody parks there.
And then they just use it for a turning lane. They think it's a turning, there's only one
So
sign that says do
tempting.
not use breakdown lane, or breakdown lane prohibited.
I wouldn't mind going to a 4-hour limit, but I'm
4 hour
adamantly
or
opposed to
all
a
day?
no limit.
When we have events in Riverfront Park, like the
Or a 6-hour limit.
animals that come, I forget what it's called, wildlife encounters.
Yeah.
We'll have people park along there as overflow parking
Yeah.
for that event. And they'll come early and stay late, so
Yep.
they're there for more than 2 hours.
Right. I have no problem with a limit, just do it, 4-hour, 6-hour limit. But if you don't do something less than an 8-hour limit, you're gonna have employees park there all day long, and you're not gonna have people that are gonna go up there to the park and utilize that
I'm
whole
just trying to think
corridor.
what employees, we having issues at all in lot, was it lot G? Would that be lot G? The river front?
No.
We don't have as many people fishing there right now, because there's a chain link fence, but when that chain link fence is fixed, you're gonna have the fishermen back there, and that's not really fair.
But I don't see a guy fishing there all day long.
You make it 4 hours.
But I, you know what I mean?
You know, a couple hours, and then they get back in their vehicle and somebody else comes in. You know, it's not all day long like an employee would be, which would be tight. But having that access in and out also limits that lane use,
4 hours.
because it's unpredictable. 4 hours, I think, would be,
Because G is 4.
Couldn't they do what city people do? Sit there, watch?
Take the
put a
subway.
Jersey barrier
My
right
daughter
there.
comes here with her watch set. I said, why is your watch going off?
Yeah.
I gotta go move my car.
So, can you come up
She
with
would-
some suggestions for that? Because we're gonna come back and finalize that,
Yeah.
work on it.
Oh, I-
We're running late.
Just,
The next
take the
thing's on the
consensus, if
agenda.
he wants to go up from 2 to 4, just do it. I'm for 4 hours. Make a motion, go to 4 hours.
I,
Riverfront, along that river.
311.
311.
4 hours and no overnight parking?
And no overnight parking.
West Main,
West Main Street.
12 spots.
Is there a second?
hold the second one.
No. Okay.
Won't we work on that for, when we get the thing back, we'll come up with a number for that.
You have to read this top one real quick.
Okay, so next on the agenda,
So I'm going, okay. Thanks, guys.
my glasses.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Yeah, thanks.
Nate.
Thank you
Great
very
job.
much.
Wonderful job.
You read it? Give it back to me
Okay.
before you leave.
We've Jim Cropsey with
I love it.
Riverfront Place Parking. Hey, come on down, sit down, Jim. Grab a chair and a mic,
And a mic.
one of these things.
I gotta move one of these things.
Yep.
Well, Pat, sorry to hear about your hand.
Well, thanks.
I'm assuming everyone got my letter and has had a chance to digest it.
Yeah.
Essentially, what I don't think I mentioned in the letter is that the park was closed. There was a sign in the park that it was closed when this event occurred. How are you supposed to understand that you need to make a reservation when the park is closed? Two, we were informed by the police that a meeting of the town selectmen and the Parks Commission had both ordered that evening the towing. So
What were you told specifically?
the
That
vehicles.
the Board of Selectmen ordered the towing?
Yes,
Neither
And the
did the
Parks
park
Commission.
commissioners.
and the Parks
I
Commission.
can tell you that the Board of Selectmen did not order that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I say something really quickly? So, Jim, thanks for coming in tonight. I just kind of want to clarify, because I know you sent the letter to the Parks Commission and the selectmen, and my understanding is tonight the selectmen would like to hear from you, but the authority rests with the Parks Commission. Am I understanding that correctly? So it's for you to speak with the selectmen tonight, but you're not making any decisions tonight, is that correct? I just want to
I
understand.
don't think there's anything that we can make a decision on, but we would like to be abreast of.
That's my understanding.
Any-
There's
Okay,
nothing
I
that
just-
can be made a decision
But-
on. I sent the letter to Parks, the Select Board, and the police, because those were the authorities of the town that were indicated by the police that were involved.
Do you know who the officer is that told you that?
I don't recall. It would be on record, I'm sure, at the police department.
There's
So-
a responding officer.
So Jim, you're here tonight to tell us that people are parking in Riverfront Place, and when they park in the town's portion that visit or have business to do with Riverfront Place, and they park into the town's portion of that's within in that area, the 10 spaces or 12 spaces that we have in there. Anyway, there's parking, town parking in there, that when there's an event going on, the police come knocking at your door and ask you to move, or that those vehicles will be towed away. That's the gist of what's going on here, correct?
Beyond that, it's a long-standing issue in that my firm gave the parking lot to the town with the provision that there would be shared parking. And there were agreements with the town after that had fallen through, which I think Jeannie has found, which indicated that there would be 2-hour parking as in the rest of downtown. And what showed up were signs that were effectively parking only. And I know the selectmen are not the authorities, but I've never heard from Parks about this situation, and I've had no response from Parks or the police. The only response I've had is from the select board.
And have you reached out to Parks?
Yes, I sent them a letter.
Okay, the same letter that you...
Same letter that you've received.
And have you heard a response from Parks at all?
No response whatsoever from no one at Parks. So I appreciate that you've had an opportunity to bring this up, and perhaps with a little nudge, something can occur.
It is my hope that this issue gets resolved. I think that it's in the best interest of both the town of Tilton and your business that we resolve this, because it's, if we have a similar kind of a situation up where we are at the Tilton Senior Center over the years, and we've been able to resolve parking into a win-win situation, and there's no reason whatsoever that we can't do that for business that's a long-standing business like yours downtown. So that's my own personal feeling. Unfortunately, a long time ago, we made the decision to put the authority over to the Parks Commission, and they have the authority. I would hope that the Board of Selectmen at least reaches out to the parks to ask them to sit down with you and come to some type of resolve. That's my only wish. I'm only speaking for myself as one selectman. But in every kind of a situation like this, my only hope is that there is a resolve. I think it works both ways here.
So, as you heard, we were talking about parking. What are your thoughts on the spots between your building and the light, the traffic light? How would that help with parking that might alleviate some people from overflowing?
Well, we have an off-site parking lot that we use for events, and we have 26 or 28 parking spaces on site. At this point in time, we have sufficiency. In the past, the mill had parked there, but the town does not maintain those spaces, nor does the state. And when I attempted to maintain them with an agreement with the town, we ran into issues with the amount of snow that came from those spaces. So we abandoned trying to maintain them. It also wasn't really being used by our people.
Mm-hmm.
When you say the amount of snow coming from those places, like what?
The 10 parking spaces.
The 10 parking spaces?
It was a bad snow year. The year we tried to maintain them with an agreement with the town, to maintain those parking spaces on Main Street. There was a lot of snow that year.
So in your opinion, what is the holdup between the agreement with the town and with you? What is holding that agreement up right now?
We're talking about two different things.
Two different parking areas. One is parking on Main Street
Yep.
that the town has not maintained
Yep.
since I purchased the building. They maintained it when the Tilton Endless Belts was operational, but they have never maintained it since. And I understand that from the state that it is a town responsibility to maintain those parking spaces.
And that's the ones where the True Green accident is.
That's exactly where
So in the
True
winter,
Green
they
is.
haven't been plowing those out, they've just been filled in with
They've
snow.
been using it for snow storage. And that's what ended up happening, why we abandoned it, was that those spaces ended up being used for snow storage, and we had no place to put the snow.
So when you went and agreed to clear it, you weren't allowed to clear because you couldn't put the snow anywhere from it.
We got to the point where we had no place to put the snow.
So
It became a dumping ground, I think, for everybody in downtown. It was not to the point of being able to be maintained. The police at one point in time had urged me to encourage employees to park there so that the road would not be used as a throughway. And then when people would park there, they would be told by the police that if they parked there again, they'd be towed. So people didn't park there. I use those spaces, and I think I'm the only person in that building that uses those spaces, and I only use it for 2 hours or less, because I know I'll be towed, because I had my warning. I believe if you look at the planning board minutes, and you can find the proper minutes, that Riverfront Place had been granted 5 of those spaces as their specific use with the
I have that.
occupancy.
How long ago was that?
I have that, but that isn't so.
2,000.
2000?
They weren't granted them by the planning board. That was in the proposal. Oh, I thought I had it. God, I must have loaned it to somebody. There was a book that was submitted with the site plan,
Yeah.
and it was from an engineering firm or company that Mr. Cropsey hired, showing where parking would be for this business. Because Riverfront Place had, I believe, at least 2 phases. There were 2 phases.
2 phases.
And a certain amount of parking had to be developed for phase 1, and another certain amount of parking had to be developed for phase 2. And in the meantime, that plan showed where public parking spaces were. But it didn't, the selectmen are the only ones that could give exclusive right to public parking for a private business, and that didn't take place.
So what was in the agreement that there was an agreement, but it didn't get signed by the Board of Selectmen? What was in that agreement? Okay, so what does that agreement,
This is the original agreement.
and what does that agreement state, Catherine? It says the shared use of parking? I can't remember
Yeah.
all.
And I can pass it around, just be careful, it's old. So this was the original agreement that was drawn up. And Mr. Cropsey did donate a significant amount of money to develop the sidewalk that goes through the park. It's ADA accessible, it's lit, that connects to his walkway to his parking on Mill Street. So this is the agreement that was written up. And you can see it was never signed.
Yep.
In the agreement, the town agrees to be responsible for winter maintenance, snow removal of the main walkway connecting Riverfront Place to the Riverfront Place off-site parking lot on Mill Street. And MG Incorporated agreed to be responsible for winter maintenance, snow removal of the Tilton Riverfront Park parking lot. But that was never signed. There was an agreement signed.
What was one of the reasons why the board did not want to sign that?
It wasn't the board that didn't want to sign it.
It did not include shared parking, which we requested from Parks from the very beginning. And I
At
had
that time,
At that time,
that,
Parks didn't have that
it was
authority.
the board, it wasn't the,
This was with Pat Clark when they were doing the entire commission to develop the park.
Park Clark wouldn't have had that authority.
it would have been the board.
So
Jim.
nothing ever got done. We never
Well,
signed
this
it.
is,
That agreement is between the board and Jim Crop
right, this is
at
the
C&G.
agreement, and if you look at the date, 2005, that's when the park opened. This agreement was signed October 3rd, '08, by everyone, I mean, the Board of Selectmen and Mr. Cropsey. And I believe this is a one-year agreement, and she'll be reviewed annually. It wasn't renewed.
That's
When was
correct.
that, Catherine?
This was October 3rd, 2008.
2008, yeah.
And was that shared parking?
No,
No.
we
That
have
was
never
just
agreed
that
to
was just
shared
snow
parking.
removal.
Because River-
That's the snow removal
Right,
one.
because
that-
Riverfront Park only has those spaces. That's it. Riverfront Place has all the parking on Mill Street. Plus,
But
Don't we
Jim,
have 10 spaces down here in front of the chain link fence?
but hold
that's
on,
public parking. It's not.
Or designated specialty parks?
but
okay.
didn't Jim come in a few years, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering, and I apologize. My memory is what it is. Didn't Jim come in about 4 or 5 years ago when he was developing Mill Street parking and ask for a dual agreement to say you can use Mill Street parking anytime whatsoever up there? Okay. And what date is that?
July 21st, 2015.
Okay.
Yes, I have a copy of that.
And the Board of Selectmen did not agree to his proposal.
Nope, and I never had a response, actually.
Okay,
This is what a tenant had given me.
thank you.
That a tenant had also.
Okay, this is
reported
from,
that.
this is actually from Annie.
I never had a response. I don't think Annie ever had a response.
I think both of you came in with
Yes,
us, did you
we
not?
both came in, and we never had a
Right.
response.
Okay, I remember this now.
Now, it may be that we're not getting a response because it's Parks, and I still have never heard from Parks.
Well, the town administrator at the time should have responded. But I can't tell you why that didn't take place.
So, all right, let me ask you this one question, and this may be a very loaded question. I'm going to ask it anyway, for the sake of trying to come to something. When you have events there, of all the times that the police come knocking on your door and say you need to move or we're going to tow your vehicle, how many people are actually at the parks? I mean, I'm trying to see how many times that you're at, there are events that conflict with the times that there are events at the park. I guess that's what I'm going after.
Well, this particular event, March 30th, was an event that I was sponsoring, and I had no interest in or control over anything that Annie does. Okay? So Annie and La Pièce, the catering hall, are completely different.
But there's an issue because we go there and knock on the door and say you need to move your vehicle.
In this particular instance, it was my event.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have this.
It was a fundraiser for a conservation organization that I'm a significant member of. And in that instance, there were 3 vehicles in the parking lot that the town had, as I understand it. I was told that there were 3 vehicles parked in the town-only parking area. And yet, the police, with their lights on, were at the entrance of the complex, and people did not come that had reserved tables. So the conservation organization is a significant reduction in their revenue accordingly.
I have no way of knowing if the police did that or not.
They were there, they had their lights on. They're on my security
Have the other
cameras.
chief here, just let him go.
Talk to the chief about it.
Chief's here.
If they had their lights on, they were probably, I
Yes.
wasn't,
Fuck with that.
oh, no, I'm here. If they were on the road, they probably had their lights on because they were on Route 3 and 11, West Main Street, but
Who called the police to have the,
Parks.
yeah, usually the request comes from Parks Commission.
I don't think anybody specifically called for that specific event, but the park commissioners asked that the signs be enforced, the parking ordinance there be enforced, because I don't know how many years ago we posted this, but we didn't want to go through another year of not having any parking for Riverfront Park because it was being utilized by Riverfront Place. At one event, I think it was a Friday night,
Has this been
I got a
discussed?
phone call, and one of the park commissioners had gone to Riverfront Place, Riverfront Park to park, and could not. In fact, at that time, there were cars parked along Route 3 on the shoulder that were attending an event at Riverfront Place. But I do know the officer that responded because he called me. He just went in and spoke with them. He didn't threaten people with towing or anything.
In that particular instance.
Yeah.
So-
But after that incident, the park commissioners did ask the chief to enforce the parking at Riverfront Park.
Who is the chair of the Parks Commission?
Bob Hardy.
Has the Park Commissioners met since the letter?
No,
I think they meet
they will
next
meet
week,
Monday night.
Monday.
next Monday, yeah.
Can the Board of Selectmen send a letter to the Parks Commission and ask if they would consider Jim's request to meet with them?
on behalf of the board?
Simple as that.
Did you see that one?
No. Just asking if we put out a letter to the Parks Commission chair to see if they would reach out to Jim to meet with them.
Probably a simple call from the town administrator to Bob Hardy would take care of that.
That would be fine too. I'm just asking if the board, if they would direct Jeannie to do that. I mean, we need to try to resolve.
Everybody agrees with that, right?
Oh.
At this point, I have no opinion.
I'm not micromanaging.
The responsibility for the parks lie with the park commissioners until it doesn't. And one way or the other, I think it's an open meeting, just like this is, and you should be able to go right in there and speak with the park commissioner. I would think, God bless America, right?
True.
You have a question in the audience, Chad.
Bill?
Hi, Bill Lawrence, I'm with the Parks Commission, and I think we'd be happy to discuss this again with Jim, and as long as we could have all the documentation where the selectmen have been dealing with Riverfront, as long as we have all of that so that we can make an informed decision. A lot of times people come in, we don't have all the information we need, so as long as we have a chance to review that, I think we could understand the situation. And I know it is a sticky situation. We are trying, as the parks, to have the taxpayers have a place to go when they want to, because they paid the money for that park.
Yeah.
It's very important that they have that. I know we are, Jim's running a big business there, and he wants to succeed, and parking is an issue in downtown. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, so we need to just work together for this.
Right, that's good to hear.
I've tried to do that.
Are you aware that he's offered to
For a
open up
long
Mill
time.
Street for us as well, to share parking?
This was our last go-round, Pat.
Can you make copies?
Did we see that at the park?
The last one was from 2015, Bill.
Okay.
You'll remember it when you see it.
Copy of it.
Don't lose my stuff. Oh my God.
The last copy.
So we could compile all known dealings with this from the selectmen's point of view, correct?
I'll bring my file with me Monday night.
There you go. And everything that's actually in files down there, and whatever it takes to get this solved. I mean, I want to be supportive of business, but the residents have, you know, their part too. So the answer, I don't know. I'm not suggesting anything. I hope you can deal with the situation successfully with the Parks Commission, because I know they're all good
Well,
people.
it's not my problem.
And Jim,
Well,
just a point of information,
and I don't know.
Riverfront Park is never closed. It's the bathrooms that get closed.
Doesn't it
But
say
because
park
we,
closed?
no, it says
No.
bathrooms, restrooms, because we accepted federal dollars, that was a year-round park.
Even with snow on the ground and snow on the trails.
Yep. So cross-country skiing, snowshoe sledding, whatever, it has to be open.
That should be part of that
365 days
documentation
a
as
year.
well.
Well, that was just a point of fact. Those signs are confusing, because it does
If
close
it's a
as
fact, there's
big.
a paper that says it's a fact. There has to be.
Yeah, there is in the archives down in the basement.
Well, there you go. We should have all the
So
information.
I think we'll get copies of everything we can together, and
But
the
that's
Parks Commission
that doesn't have bearing on the board.
next
So
Monday.
maybe Bob will reach out.
Okay.
Talk to Bob and
Email it ahead of time to us.
He's getting it.
Great. I can review it.
Are those the only,
What did you say?
Email
if you
it.
could email the information ahead of time. Catherine's gonna be at the meeting with all the documentation, but
But I don't have scanning capability up there.
I think that's a Parks Commission duty to dump,
do you,
if they're going to prepare for
do
the
you
meeting.
want Gail to scan your folder?
No, because this is only half of it.
And Jeannie has more than that. She was going like this.
Jeannie has more.
That's half of it?
I have all the important things. But this is only half of what I have. Oh my God.
Thank God for Catherine and being Catherine.
Hopefully, Miss Cropsey, we planted a seed.
Well, that's why I sent the letter, because I was getting no response from anyone on anything.
Okay.
And it is a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
The top one goes to
Agreed.
Jim.
Those are my documents.
No, the top one goes to Jim.
No, you can keep that.
All right,
I can print
these
off
all
one.
go to Catherine.
Just from an email.
The top one was from
You're getting
Jim.
one more. You're getting an
I got
extra.
an extra
Getting
one.
another.
Yeah, you're getting a bonus one.
You're getting a bonus one, yeah.
The one from, remember years ago from Annie? When she met with us?
Oh, I do. I have that up, yeah, I have that.
Must have it. Okay,
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, the next thing we have on our agenda, the town administrator's report for 7 PM. We got a little bit of time. I didn't know if anybody was here for any specific reason. Want to have any topics they want to bring up, other than just... Jeannie, we'll have you next.
All right. So you all have my report. Under the action items, the first item is I did have an organization come in and do an audit of all the town buildings and the lighting. And a copy of that document is in your file for you to take a look at. I'd like you to review it and at some point, really come back and discuss it. What they have asked, and he does believe that there can be savings for the town, is the bottom line, and that's in the executive summary in the, I think it's in the first or second page. What he'd like to do is a light survey with one of the officers at the police department, and that would require going out at night and just checking the lights to see that the lights, which lights are the town lights versus Eversource, and see which ones are working, and get that survey done so he can, I guess, provide even more definitive feedback to you. So that's what I'm asking the select board, if you'll approve him doing that, because he didn't want to do it without your approval.
Is there a cost?
No. They've done this audit for free.
It was very nice.
It seemed as though that would be a wonderful thing for the town.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know there's different lighting we can use that would significantly save costs on bulbs and whatnot. Energy
But
costs.
he initially, and I think it might be in your summary, thought that he could probably see a reduction in our lighting of about $25,000 a year. He did look.
How much a year?
25,000.
Now, that's a reduction in our energy use.
That's
There's
the
a
lighting.
cost to replacing
Yes,
equipment
yes,
that
there is.
would
Absolutely.
cost.
There's-
How much is that
Yeah.
cost? We don't know yet, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, he looked at the DPW, he looked at the senior center, he looked at the PD and the town office, and as you probably guessed, the biggest energy robber is this building. The least is the senior center, followed by DPW, I believe, and then the PD, or maybe it's the PD, then the DPW.
I don't see the senior
Big
center.
doors that open.
What's that?
I don't see the senior center in here.
It's in there somewhere, I don't have the report in front of me. So if you're good with that, I'll tell him to go ahead and
Please.
connect with the chief and see if he can arrange to make that happen. The second item is the parking permit ordinance, which is in your to-be-signed folder, and I just need you to look at that and sign it so we can get that piece done. Want to give you an update on the town planner position. We have received 4 applications. I would like to schedule interviews, and I thought that it would also be helpful to have an experienced town planner sit in on those interviews to be able to ask some questions that maybe necessarily I wouldn't know because I'm not a town planner. So if you're good with that, I'd like to get moving on that.
Who are you suggesting as a sit?
Well, obviously I know my town planner in Meredith, so I could ask him. I don't know that he would be available, I haven't asked him, but there are town planners in the area that I could ask.
When are you going to do those?
I'd like to try to start scheduling them, we'll probably start calling, once you approve it, Monday or Tuesday of next week, and start scheduling the interviews. Depending on the 4 applicants' availability, maybe they would start by the end of next week.
I think we're going to get moving on that one.
Move on.
No, moving on the review with interviews.
So will it be just you and this town planner person?
I could have Tim, I could have Gail.
Are these applications, resumes, are they town planner resumes? The 4?
None
The number, 50 of them, 50% of them, none of them?
of them have town planner experience. They have experience in planning, but not as a town planner, not as in that official capacity. 2 seem to be very strong in code enforcement.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll put it in a list of top 1, 2, 3, and grade them,
Yes,
Or none?
yes.
or none. That would be sad.
And if there are none, are we still running the ad or is it stopped?
No, it's done. It completed May 3rd. It's still on our website?
So we may want to get this done quick and keep it posted or rerun it?
Well, certainly we could rerun it. I didn't want to leave it.
Decide after.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave it in the newspaper paying for that, you know. Initially, when people are looking for jobs, they see it right away, and if they haven't responded, they're not going to respond in the first, I think, by the deadline, so I'd rather do it over again if none of these, my goal would be to interview them, and if I think that we'd want you to interview them, that would be the next step.
Okay.
I think it's a great plan, and my question about who was going to be there was just my curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, great. The last item on my action list is the high school, college career readiness students want to do a community service project to clean Buffalo Park. We didn't, when this was brought to me, I then looked to see what we had for a volunteer service agreement, something that protects the town. It appeared that we didn't have one. I reached out to Primex and they provided me with a draft, a template, a sample, which I then took, and you have a copy in your folder. And I'd like you to, it would be great if you would be able to look at it tonight and approve it, because there's a bit of urgency to get this project done at Buffalo Park. And I would be more comfortable having these signed off before we have volunteers doing it.
Did you ask?
No, that would be under jurisdiction
Commission.
of
Park
the
Commission.
Conservation Commission.
The Conservation Commission gave maintenance authority at Buffalo Park, Park Commission.
Where is the,
I think just let both know because there's conservation easement on there. Very strict on what can be done and touched or built
So-
or altered, so
Bob Hardy's aware of that.
So
I think both boards should know.
this came to me through Kathy Mitchell. This is how it got to
Okay.
me. So, in looking at the trail, there's a Liam Stacy sent an email to the Conservation Commission saying that they would like to do this. Kathy then came in to me and asked me about it, and I then looked for
The park for-
paperwork.
Why do they have to be 18 years of age or older? Because not all seniors are 18.
I know, and if they're not 18, then I will need to have the parents sign off.
I was gonna say, because that's gonna throw out all of most of FFA.
Yep. I did,
So can we add that language?
and,
so
well,
if
it
the
would be,
school, if this is under the school, are they indemnified by the school?
well, we, and I've already checked with Primex, with this volunteer service agreement, we have that, we can provide that coverage. If they're
If-
under 18, it's not as, they would prefer them to be 18 years or older, but they then pointed me to the youth employment law and volunteer.
But they're signing a piece of document that says I'm fully responsible for my own safety and safety of the others who might be affected by my actions, omissions. I agree to release, defend, and indemnify and hold harmless the town of Tilton, its agents, employees, and officers from any and all claims of illness, bodily injury, personal injury, property damage occurring to me or others arising from my negligence.
Anyone
Their
can sue
negligence.
anyone for anything.
So,
So you can sign the agreement and,
but what you're saying is you're not going to indemnify this volunteer for cleanup of
it's
of
not
town
a,
and Tilton property.
it's protecting the town.
I understand what your intent is, but
It's not my intent, it's Primex. I'm getting this from Primex.
I get that we're
Okay.
getting it from Prinex, but in the past, we have volunteers. We have volunteers from YAP, we have volunteers from the school, we have volunteers that do things around the town, and we indemnify them. So how do we not?
What is do we have an agreement for those that come in to do?
Community service work, yes.
That's different, and that's a
Yeah.
little different.
That is different,
It is different,
even though they could be doing the same thing.
yes.
So now we're not going to do this, I can't.
Well, I'm not sure that, it doesn't appear to me, Pat, that, because I couldn't find it, that
So
we've
is
ever
the
done
school
it.
covering them?
Well, that's a good question.
So, I mean, you're gonna send out the kids that, you just said that this was the school, right? High school, college career readiness students.
Yes.
So if they're not covered by the school and they're doing volunteer community work for the school, and we're not gonna cover them, and they're signing in a paper to hold harmless, and they get hurt,
But that's from their indemnification is arising from their own negligence.
Right.
I believe when we indemnify our boards and committee members, if they are negligent,
Right, you're not covered.
they're not covered. That's what it's saying.
But you make a good point, and I will go back to this individual here and ask if they've got their own paperwork. My concern was on the town side. So if I can do the more research tomorrow. I had asked Kathy how soon she needed this. They want to get it done sooner than later.
the school has to be covered, I mean,
It's a school's sanctioned event, so I would assume they would.
right. So why, if the school is covered, then why do we need to
Because it's like,
We're not
it's,
providing them
right,
with-
it's like any of the nonprofits I ever worked for as executive director. When we had volunteers, we always had them sign off on something. It just protected us.
We've not done this for volunteers that have done this.
Our indemnification that we give them does not indemnify them from their own negligence. Never has. Our town employees, us.
I think it's a good idea to have the application. And it's not just about kids in the park, it's about anybody who wants to do volunteer.
So what were you looking from us to approve that?
Yes, it's.
You're asking them to, if they're volunteers, you're asking them that they represent that they have the skill and ability to perform whatever task that they're,
They're volunteering for it. They shouldn't be volunteering for something that they don't have skills or ability for it, right?
you would
These
assume.
are high school kids. What skills and abilities are they going to bring out to
Right.
the
Well, I
forest?
don't believe there's going to be chainsaws involved or dangerous equipment. It's,
No, but you trips and falls,
right,
sprains. And this doesn't even cover them because it's around 18 years of age or older. So you
Every
need
time they
another
go-
form.
I mean, you sign these things, all volunteer organizations, if you go skiing at any ski mountain, regardless of it, you're going to fill out, sign the same type of form.
I'm sorry, I can't sign it. It's not something that we have ever done to this degree. We have had many volunteers to come in. We have people that come in, we have Boy Scouts that come in, we have...
But again, they haven't been indemnified from their own negligence.
This isn't indemnifying them from their own, just from their own negligence.
Yeah, that's the very end of the sentence. Arising from my negligent, reckless, wanton, or intentional conduct while participating in this activity.
Why don't you let me call the school tomorrow and see what they have to say? And I'll send out an email, an informational email. Not asking you to do anything, just an informational email. And if this has to wait another week, it has to wait another week.
If Liam needed it next week, he'd ask the end of this week.
Do you sign it?
I think it's fine, but I think the appointment needs to come from the park commissioner. Oh my, I'm wavering on that.
Well, but this is Primex.
This is volunteer for anything, Catherine.
What?
This is any volunteer. It's not just parks-related volunteers,
Right,
but
correct.
any volunteer.
Right, and it's the town's
We're
insurance.
hurrying this for this particular individual.
Right, but this is, you said this is for parks, and maybe parks has some role to play, but this is the town's insurance, and the town's insurance covers parks. Parks doesn't carry their own insurance, do they?
No, that's what I was saying to you. Is this more of a liability issue than?
It's covering, it's just protecting the town.
So the process for parks, would it be that they sign off on this and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen as a top layer of?
No, I think this is a document that it goes much to what Pat's.
Any volunteer that you have in parks has to have one of those signed.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. If we're dealing with the park situation, like this specific one, would it go to parks for them to say, yes, we'll let this person go in and clean up Buffalo Park? I mean, right now it's a cleanup, that's a great thing.
Okay, so I'm misunderstanding. I thought you
And
were
then we
asking,
would say, yes,
I
that's
thought you were
okay.
asking me if parks should approve this first and then.
No.
Okay.
I'm
All
just
right.
thinking of the
Yeah.
process because
Yeah, and that's, yeah,
there seems to be, we want to hurry for this. The park commissioners are meeting Monday night.
yeah.
So that approval could come Monday night, not to hold this
Well,
up.
the town.
No, yeah,
needs to
what I was
approve this
asking, yeah,
form.
that's what I was asking
our
for, is the
blanket liability.
form.
I'm trying to get this person approved to go in and clean up Buffalo Park.
Right, but,
I'm great with the form,
I'm-
okay?
all right.
Okay.
I just don't want this person to lose out on what they're trying to do.
We'll get to the form. Thing is if we
I'm
want
good.
that person, we want to make sure we have a proper liability
Yeah.
release form.
I understand
If we
this.
can approve the form,
I understand that.
okay, but not everybody else is in it.
I know, but I thought you were saying it for my benefit. But I do think it's pertinent because there does seem to be,
So, can
So
we
what-
stick to this form? I agree with this form. It's a standard form that you want to. So where do you want to go with this form? We got
So-
one person that doesn't agree,
I
and
think
there
the
could be a
form's great,
question.
let's use it.
I think, but there is a question of, and Pat brought it up, which is right, who does insure them if they do get hurt and it isn't from negligence?
Right, and so let me make that call tomorrow, and as I said, then I will send out an email just letting you know what I've learned. And if you're good with this form, then I think that you should be using this
Adopt
form.
it across the board for.
Yeah.
Let the record show I'm against this form.
We haven't voted yet.
I
Assume-
didn't say you voted. Did I, Joe?
I'm gonna assume that.
Okay, you can assume all you want. It's in discussion.
So do we want to, obviously we have to vote on accepting this form at some point. Do you want to wait till after Jeannie checks up on it and we'll
Well,
discuss it
yeah,
next week?
and
Is that gonna be
certainly
too
to
late?
Catherine's point, you could let me check tomorrow, see what I can find out from the high school. You can take this request to Parks on Monday night about these young people helping. And by the time it gets to Thursday night, we'll have all the answers, and then you can vote on the form and they can sign the form.
What about the volunteers that volunteered to serve lunch at the senior center?
So we.
I'm asking a question, John.
But we were having a discussion, Pat. Could you just let us finish? We're going through a
You finished your
timeline.
discussion.
We're going through a timeline on how this would work. And she's going to.
Excuse me, but you
All right.
finished that discussion.
No. Okay, we went through a timeline on how this would work, and Jeannie is going to contact the insurance company
Cut off again.
about all this. Well, excuse me, Pat, but you.
Go
cut
ahead,
me
John,
off
you got the floor,
continually,
go ahead.
And you're continuing
Go
to
ahead.
cut me off right now.
Keep going.
This is trying to keep things moving in a direction and not going backwards. Jeannie is going to go and check with the insurance company and
The school.
the school
Yep.
to see who would cover them, to answer the question that you had. And then from there, on Thursday, we're going to discuss it, this Thursday coming up. Now, there's additional information. Go ahead, Pat.
What happens to the seniors that are serving meals at the senior center? What happens if they get hurt serving a meal at the senior center? Does every one of them have to fill out one of these forms? And are they not indemnified by the town if they're serving a meal at the senior center?
If they are not hurt by their own negligence, you know, let's say.
What determines, so who defines their own negligence?
Okay, let's say I show up at Riverfront Park, blind running drunk, which is not gonna happen, but let's say I am. And I go there and I'm gonna help with an event, and I stumble down, I fall in the river and drown. Whose fault is that? It's my fault. I was negligent. I shouldn't have, you know.
So what happens if
But if
a
I go
senior...
there and a chunk of ice comes off the roof and hits me in the head, I'm not negligent, but I'm indemnified.
Right.
It wasn't my fault.
Right.
Do you understand?
I
So you're-
understand, but I also understand the other side of this coin. When a senior trips on a rug that's been there for a while and says, okay, you know, they can look at it both ways, Catherine. I mean, it can be interpreted of many different ways, and I have seen it interpreted many different ways.
And that
So
would be
you're
the
going
same.
down a slippery slope when you look at this indemnification the way it's worded. Negligence arising from my own negligence. Well, you've been here 3 times. You know that there's a rug there. Excuse me, you know, could you have walked a little bit slower when you were carrying that plate to that elderly woman? You know,
Technically, that would be the senior center's fault because you knew it was a problem and you didn't remove it.
Yeah, rug's a bad analogy because they shouldn't be, scatter rugs shouldn't be anywhere near elderly people.
What are you talking about, Willis?
They shouldn't. I've been told it many times.
but we have volunteers every single day.
I think it's nice.
So are they all required to fill out this form?
We haven't gotten that far.
And if they do fill out this form, they are not indemnified by the town if anything happens to them.
They are if it's not.
CAP
their
comes up,
negligence.
CAP comes up and fills in and volunteers also. The Explorers used to come up and fill in, and the Boy Scouts used to come up and help out too. Joe Jessamine, but you're indemnified because you're a selectman, so it doesn't matter. You're employed by the
He
town, so
wouldn't
you're
be
indemnified by the
if it
town.
was through his own negligence.
And I'm not a selectman when I'm there. I'm a guy.
But you're volunteering, so.
Now, as a selectman, I'm volunteering as a guy.
doesn't
But you're a
matter.
selectman, Joe, and you're always a selectman until you, yeah,
Right.
That's right. That's what I thought.
you get a
But
paycheck
be
from the
that as it
town.
may, we'll get some answers
I
and
have a
revisit,
question
right?
beyond this.
Make things.
I still haven't got mine answered yet.
In order for us to approve this
Let's
So-
go back to Pat's question.
So I'm happy to ask the insurance company to come in and talk with you about this if you want some further clarification about it. I don't think it's, from my perspective, it's a good practice to get into. Knowing who's volunteering for your town or for your organization is just good practice.
So meanwhile, the board's going to approve a form
No, not tonight.
so that they can get Buffalo Park cleaned up.
We're not doing it tonight. We're going to do some research, which will come back. We have a little timeline here, and which will come back next Thursday with the information on that.
Yep.
Jason?
Who pays for the senior center's insurance, lights, heat, and occupancy?
Okay,
Are they financially an independent 501 nonprofit organization?
No.
No.
We were told they would be financially independent after they had their seed money and their feet under them, and that they would be an up and running entity that wasn't going to be funded by the town. So
It's probably-
their insurance right now.
That's probably a
And
whole...
what risk does the town have because there was no form filled out or no release by a volunteer?
I think this
You were
is...
never told that they were going to be a separate 501c3.
No, I'm just saying, when are they going to
Okay.
be financially independent on their own after they got the seed money insurance and the town report under the
Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to find out just about a blanket, what type of liability release form we should have for volunteers, for any things that involve the town or our insurance.
Doesn't answer my question. Who pays
No,
for the heat, light, insurance, occupancy, and all the things that belong to senior center? Is that taxpayer money, or are they independently fundraising and supporting their own cause?
Well, I think that's probably, I would say it's all paid for through the town, but they're also raising money for it. But if we can put that on, that's like a pretty big talk. And I don't really want to get into it right now, but I can put it, we can set it up for the, Jason, we can set up for an agenda. Hold on a second. We can set up for an agenda item and do that, and so we can discuss it.
It's in the budget, so you know.
It really isn't. It's very well hidden.
Okay, so I have my marching orders. So I'm just going to
I'll
repeat
meet with
it.
you.
I'm going to
Jason.
call,
That would good.
I'll meet with you.
I'm going to call the high school and ask them about what their coverage is.
Make an
I'm
appointment.
going to call the insurance
I'll
company
get the
one more
numbers.
time. Catherine's, the Parks Commission is going to, I guess, address this, whether they or not they want to have these young people clean up Buffalo Park on Monday, and by Thursday, we'll have the answers to make you comfortable or not comfortable to sign off on this volunteer agreement, and hopefully the students can wait that long, and if you approve it, they sign it on Friday and they're off and they're good, assuming that the parks want them to clean it up.
Is there more information about this? Wow.
I'll send you the emails that I got from Kathy Mitchell.
Okay.
Yep.
Or just send them to Bob. Thank you.
I don't understand why we've always had volunteers indemnified under the town. That's my argument.
We have a different insurance company.
We've had Primex in the past, so, I know. And we've had forms to fill out for the volunteers, but not this form. And that's my argument.
Well, this is what Primex did.
It's got to be somewhere here in town.
Okay. What's that? Well, I'm sorry, I really didn't hear what you said, Pat.
It's not important.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. In the to-be-signed folder, there's a transmittal letter and the use agreement for Tuscan Hill Properties based on the meeting that you all had with Carmine and Annette Sarno. So if you're good with that, if you could sign that, and then I'll get that out.
I have a couple of questions to ask about it. Can we really tell the fire department to cease washing their equipment at the Center Street location in the winter months?
I did.
Or can we just tell them to stop washing their equipment on Center Street?
I had a conversation, I met with the chief and went over the concerns, the issues that were, and if you can't, that's what you told these folks when you met with them. Well, that's what was agreed to, and I went over
I
it
made the comment that
more
we
than a few
couldn't tell the
times.
fire department what to do.
And I did have a conversation with the chief, and he was good with it.
Kathy,
good
can
with
you
it?
read that portion
So-
right there?
Yeah.
Instruct the Tilton Northfield Fire Department to cease washing their equipment at the Center Street location in the winter months. What if they want to wash a truck out back?
We asked them, and they said there wouldn't be a problem, that they can wash it at the other fire
Right.
station.
Okay, but what if,
It's solved, right?
I'm just making a point, but I guess you're not hearing. It's all right, I'm not going to sign
Well,
it.
it ties into your point, Catherine, that they continually park apparatus across Center Street, effectively blocking the road,
Which they
And
should.
that's really the issue, is
which
don't
is,
do it on
goes back to
Center
enforcement
Street.
from the police to maintain the townways open. Because when they have the engine out there, you can't turn to exit, you can't get around it.
And it only says in the winter months,
And
which means
That's 'cause
if
of
it's
the
not
ice.
winter, they can still wash their cars there, or trucks.
Well, that's what we discussed here.
that's what the Sarnos, and that's
Yes.
what they would like, so we accomplished that part of it. If we would like to
I
do
did,
more.
I did exactly what you all agreed to, that's what's in the letter. And
I
if
don't-
you,
we
if you
never-
didn't, if you didn't agree to it, the majority of the board did. I know
I'm
that.
just saying, it's, and then.
I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't gotten approval for it.
Public Works Department will scrape the snow down to pavement during the winter season. We have some storms that's just not possible. At least that's what I've been told. Ice storms.
I
We
had the
did say that
conversation
we
with
would-
Kevin.
Right, and we did say that we would do it, we would, how did we word it? We said that we would try to make every effort to do that.
But that's not what that says.
But we should note that there, that we would make every effort. But we can't possibly agree to something, I signed it, but
But
it's
that's what it
possibly
says.
agreed to say 100% of the time, go down to pavement.
Right. It didn't say best effort. Again, I'm just,
Well, when we were talking about it, we said in the past, this past year, particularly in the past year, we couldn't get to that because it was an ice storm, a snowstorm, and then an ice storm, and then a snowstorm. And we could not possibly have got back down to, because that parking lot is not
Right.
a top priority. So therefore, in that kind of a situation, we're not going to be able to get it down to pavement. And he agreed in that scenario, and so we were talking about just that. Whatever.
So do you not want to sign the agreement, or do we want to amend that?
I signed
I
the
signed
agreement,
it
but it should
Okay.
be amended. That one at least should be amended.
I think it will come back to bite.
Is that easily changed so that we can
it'll wait.
sign it tonight?
No, it'll wait another week. And it's
And we'll put
it's
it as
not.
best effort, we'll write best effort on there. Put that to
Yeah,
it.
I understand that, but that's not what you said. So I'll put it in there, I'll make the change, and
He said he could scrape it to bare pavement. He said he could scrape it to bare pavement.
Kevin said he could scrape it to bare pavement.
That's correct.
Right. Every time?
That's what he said.
Are you going to hold Kevin to 100% of the time?
I am, because he said he
Because
would.
that's what we're signing,
I understand that, but again,
okay? Let it go then. I'll keep my mouth shut for the rest of the night. It's fine. I've already opened up enough worms. Bring the snakes in, the worms are done.
all right, I'm excited to bring forward the next letter. The letter, I put the letter together from the town confirming that the map that the Conservation Commission wants to preserve is publicly owned by the town. I drafted the letter, I ran it by Kathy Mitchell, she was happy with the letter. I don't know where that's at.
Signed, somewhere
It's all
down there.
signed.
It's in there.
Is it in there?
Yep, okay, thank you. The truck driver labor job description, is that in here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so that's done.
No, I need that
This?
folder, thank you.
I won't go through the FYIs, but I do have a few notes I want to go through with you. In your paperwork there, your folder, there was a letter or some information that the tax clerk, town clerk tax collector provided about the elderly and disabled exemption. So you should take a look at that. Just see if you have any questions. I asked you a week or so ago about whether you were interested in offering Blue View Vision through Anthem, Anthem and Health Trust. I did talk to Health Trust again. She said right now we have coverage is being offered through medical and dental. So this is just something above and beyond. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So do you want me to repeat that? So I did talk, I'm sorry about that. I did talk with Candace Schaefer at Health Trust about this Blue View Vision eye coverage, and she said you are providing that now to employees, medical, through the medical and dental. So this would just be something above and beyond, and it's probably not necessary. So I'd recommend not doing it. Not doing it. Because according to what I've been told, there's sufficient coverage. So this would just be above and beyond. Rethinking recycling, I think I emailed that to all of you. You were having a discussion last week or the week before, and then I ran across that, thought you'd be interested. I did print out, I think, a copy for Pat, if anyone else is interested. I didn't want to kill a tree, but if anyone wants a
Start
copy,
reading through it, yeah.
let me know. I'd like to schedule a flu clinic in the fall for Tilton employees, if you're agreeable to that. I went to a Health Trust workshop, and they offer that free to Health Trust members, so thought it'd be a nice thing to do.
Thanks.
Is that, will they actually give you a flu shot?
Yes,
Any employees that want to can.
free, yes. I forwarded you an email from the Vermont Energy Law Clinic. I assume everyone saw that and read that. Is there any interest in having another meeting?
I'd like to get the answers to the questions we already had in
Okay.
writing, not verbally in front of us.
Okay,
You know,
I will-
I think so we could look at those.
okay, I will ask. The Winnipesaukee River Basin Program Energy Efficiency Award Ceremony is on May 16th. Does anyone want to go? Do you want me to RSVP anyone to this?
I'm sorry.
The Winnipesaukee River Basin Program Energy Efficiency Award Ceremony is being held on May 16th. I forwarded that to all of you. I think the federal delegation was invited to it.
Well, except for the representative that, I think 9 of the communities out of the 10.
Would that be
covers.
the District 1?
Yeah. Because I think Franklin's the only one on
Yeah.
that side.
So, in any event, I sent that to you. If anyone's interested in attending, let me know and I'll sign you up. Scenic Byway Forum, I sent that to you. They are having a forum. If anyone's interested, let me know and I'll sign you up for that. And I did apply. You may remember, it feels like so long ago, I asked your approval to apply for an internship program, and it looks very hopeful that we will get the intern. I've been invited to interview the intern next week, so that's what I'll be doing. And with Dari gone, he was doing a piece of the timber tax. I think Gail does the intent to cut, but he did the billing. So I called DRA and they came in and met with us, and we're putting together a standard operating procedure so that we don't let any of that fall through the cracks between Gail and I. We will handle that.
Nice.
And I did have Sheena ask me today about whether or not, and I don't think this needs to be non-public, it's about whether we want more hours for her to attend the planning and/or zoning board meetings to take the minutes, to become more familiar with the process. So I don't know if that's something you want to think about.
I'd like to see what happens with the resumes that you
Okay.
got and kind of go from there myself.
Who's taking the minutes now?
Dari,
Yeah.
Okay,
And he'll be there.
okay. As long as the minutes are being taken.
he is. He is staffing. That is what he agreed to with the selectmen, to staff those meetings.
Would those extra hours put her beyond part-time?
Isn't it 30 hours? 35. 35. No, she's at 21 now.
She's at 21.
Yeah, so I would expect maybe another couple hours.
Maybe 9?
If she did planning only, maybe a couple hours, 3 hours maybe.
Is this something
Zoning.
she's interested in doing?
She asked me.
5 hours a month, probably 6 maybe.
I mean, what you look at,
How long is a planning board meeting? It's
They
usually
vary.
like,
A couple hours maybe, might be more, might be less.
They can go to 9.
yeah, I was gonna say, they can
Yeah,
go to
but
9
not every
o'clock.
time, certainly.
They're in land use too, but
Oh, yeah,
a
yeah.
typical night is what, 2 hours?
Attractive
Oh.
place.
no,
Maybe?
and
Yeah, a couple hours.
yeah, and it's something that she would.
Maybe 6 a month?
She's indicated she's interested in doing it, and if it's something you're interested in, then I would have that conversation with Dari about how to train her. Certainly between Gail and I, we know how to take minutes, we can help educate her on that.
I think it might be something good to have her a little trained in it, speak to Dari about it, maybe attend a meeting or something.
I see it, thank you.
So that she could be utilized if Dari is no longer taking minutes.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I think we'd be better off paying her hours to go to courses that somebody might be giving on training for land use, rather than attending.
She is going to the planning conference.
Oh, good.
So she's
Planning or
doing
zoning
some
meetings.
things. She's
That's
doing
good.
some things, and it seems like being
There'll be
educated
resources there.
might be to our advantage.
Yeah.
Are there courses that she can go to, New
Yes.
Hampshire Municipal?
Yep,
that
and in fact, she asked me that today. She's very, very interested in learning and doing well.
I would much rather, I'm with Catherine, I'd much rather set her up with this. As long as we got coverage for the evening planning and zoning, I'd much rather try to send her to those and get her educated as much as she can right now,
I think that's a great idea.
as much as she's willing to do
Those two
it.
things be mutually exclusive. She could do both.
But she's on the planning board in Northfield, so she's getting that experience
So
firsthand.
she does the,
No, I don't think she does
I
the
think
minutes.
that's unusual, because she lives in Tilton, or did
No, she
live
lives
until
in
just
Northfield.
She lives in
recently.
Northfield.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Which is a good thing. It's okay.
But she is on the planning board, as I understand it, but not taking minutes, or else
So
she
she's a
would need
planning
to
board
learn.
member. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go for, I don't care, both is fine with
Any
me, but I
training
would,
she can
the
get, I would
education,
think.
I'm all for education. Let them know their jobs.
All right, and then I have one last thing. We are getting closer to closing on the memorandum of understanding for the True Green accident. I think just getting the memorandum of understanding. So I think I might have told you that the New Hampshire Department of Transportation wants a separate agreement with the town. Did not want to be on an agreement with Mr. Cropsey. I did let Mr. Cropsey know that. So what we're looking at is two separate agreements. The email from the Department of Transportation, per their Attorney General and then their legal counsel, said that the DES didn't need to be on it, shouldn't be on it. They have drafted up, they made changes. I ran this by our Primex again. They provided the template, just as a reminder, they provided the template for the MOU. I had Jesse look at it, so he had his eyes on it, made some suggestions. Then it went to DOT, went to DES, went to Cropsey. And then it took a while to get it back. Jim Cropsey made some slight changes on his, which I still need to go through to compare to what we had, because he didn't do an edit. So Gail helped me with the one with the DOT by reading it, line by line. So I know I'm not missing anything because I couldn't see any edit changes with the DOT one. So we have the one for DOT that has been reviewed again by our legal counsel, or I shouldn't say the legal counsel for Primex. He's looked at this. He's said it looks good. There is a liability clause in here that he's not excited about, but he said that he thought it was fine because if you remember, and you were in that meeting, that DOT and DES want to be involved in this process as they go forward so that everybody's on the same page about what's happening. That doesn't mean they can tell us what to do, but they're aware of what we're doing. And so he said, based on that, he was fine with this document. Now, he also told me that this, once you sign it, and then the DOT signs it, it needs to go to Governor and Council. Governor and Council.
What are we agreeing to?
It's a contract, and contracts have to go through Governor and Council. So, as it happens, Governor and Council is going to be having their next meeting at the Tilton Veterans Home next, I think, on the 15th. So, if we can let this go another month, or you can sign this and we can try to get it in front of them on the 15th and get that piece. Meanwhile, I still have to finish the Cropsey piece. And we may get this started by June. Or
Wow.
nothing is easy.
No. Take a couple rocks out of the river and put it real.
I think you should bring it over to Parks Commission.
So noted.
Should be what?
When the governor's council comes in, would it be possible to detour them so they have to go up Cahill Road to get to the senior center?
Oh, that's a
Do
good
a Chris
idea.
Christie?
That's a really good idea. I think you should attend the
They still
meeting.
won't do anything.
I think you should attend the meeting.
My front lawn is still flooded. 'Cause they won't do anything. They come down the other day, took the weight signs down and put the coal patch over the boulder that's sticking out in front of my house, in the middle of the road.
Would be nice to know when they're driving by and have them go up Campbell Hill Road to get there.
Took down the posted road?
Yeah.
Wow.
I only waited 3 weeks to get my washer dry. I was up well, a washer dry for 3 weeks because they wouldn't come up the road. Stupid. Road's no good anyway.
A lot of towns still.
5-axle trailer truck can go down my street without a waiver, but a delivery truck can't. I don't get it.
So, the email back from, I have this, I'll just read it to you, from the Primex, it said, I sent them the changes that the DOT made, and his response back was, "My only concern is that the state will be requiring you to indemnify it for any damages, issues, or claims they are found to be if they are found to be the owner. Rather, they should be engaging on the repair to make sure they are happy with it, and thus would have no need to sue the town for indemnity. I don't recommend this, but it's a local decision. We have $1 million in contractual liability coverage, which would help with the indemnity exposure, but only for covered claims. We exclude certain things in the coverage document, pollution, for example, non-monetary claims as another example." And my response back to him was, "Thanks for the feedback. I suspected you would say that. We actually did have a meeting with New Hampshire DES, DOT, and Mr. Cropsey, and we all agreed that we would be working together as the repair moves forward, so I think it would be unlikely there would be an issue." His response back was, "Okay, great, that's good news, Jeannie. Getting the state's documented buy-in on the repairs to the extent possible would be important evidence if the DOT tried to bring a claim later."
We just got to the liability.
Oh.
Are they kidding?
Hmm.
Is that in perpetuity? I mean, 50 years from now, something gives way, something falls in?
Enlighten me.
Just read the liability clause. So if we fix it,
Yeah.
we're supposed to hold them harmless.
If it then, at some point in time, they say it's theirs.
So,
But they
against
said
any
it's
and
not
all
theirs.
losses suffered by the state of New Hampshire and/or DOT, its officers and employee, and any and all claims, liabilities, or penalties. Can I turn the page? Read that loud. Asserted against the state of New Hampshire and/or DOT, its officers, employees, by or on behalf of any person on account of, based, or resulting from, arising out of, or which may be claimed to arise out of, the acts or omissions of Tilton conducting the work described herein. No wonder they didn't like it.
It's the state. I don't believe you're going to change that much, like the issue we're running into with Consolidated. I mean, we have made every effort to try to address their concerns, and they have no interest in making any accommodation to allow us to put the banners on the poles. So when you're dealing with a company like that, when you're dealing with the state or somebody like Consolidated, this is, so, I mean, the option is to not enter into this agreement with the state. We need something like this to be able to work with True Green, because they're looking for one entity, who's the entity that they're going to pay to get this fixed. And if we don't have that, we don't get it fixed, and the fence stays there forever.
Or, when we're doing this work, because it does say in there that they want to have a say, that we actually have them have a say
Oh, yeah,
in writing,
yeah.
and we follow their direction. So that way, when it's fixed according to them.
Their specifications, they can't.
We have
Exactly.
documentation that says we fix it according
Right.
to them.
Exactly.
At least that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because down the road, when they say it's not theirs, and it's the river, and it's the river embankment,
We have them write up,
Right.
sign off on all the repairs we make.
right,
Goddamn lawyer drew that up.
would,
Go ahead, try to figure it out.
would they sign off on all of the documents that we send them? That's,
Well, it says right in there, they want to say on what we do to fix it. How
they
we
have to
fix it.
sign off on everything that we send them down.
Well, yeah, and if you remember when we had that meeting with them, the agreement is that we were going to come up with a plan and then meet with them and tell them this is what we were going to do, and they would
Approve it.
approve it.
And maybe that's our saving grace.
And really, we're not talking, in my opinion, anything really major. We want to pull those capstones out of the water, right? We want to put up a nice railing to replace the one that's there, and we want to create a sidewalk. So it's not, it doesn't seem to me like it's complicated work. It seems pretty straightforward. I know there were some ideas, Catherine, when we had that meeting about elaborate fishing piers. I think, no, you just do, you just do what.
Your fishing pier is just 200 yards
Yeah.
to the west.
And get it done. I mean, and if we can get this moving, maybe we can get it done before fall, before winter sets in. Get that fence
As long as we
down.
don't have to own that wall.
I don't have a problem signing that, as long as we, like I said, we make certain.
Sure.
Yeah,
We
make
have
sure
that
they're
for
on
all.
board with everything, we send them.
Yep.
Off if you disagree.
It reminds me of the trail.
I went over my 15 minutes.
How long did that take? That was your 15 minutes?
I went over my 15 minutes by 15 minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, anybody else for anything, for the town administrator first? Okay, go ahead, Tom.
this is about that walk, that accident that happened down there. I'm not clear as to why they allow a hazard situation to exist as long as it has. Now, obviously it's a safety issue right now, and it should be expedited till it's done. And whoever's, what are they trying to find fault? Is they trying to find who's at fault?
The problem is they're trying to identify who actually owns that property and who's responsible for it.
What I'm saying,
And we
my
can't,
opinion is, get the thing fixed and then find out who owns it.
You
but
can't.
we can't fix, they will not fix it until they find out who they have to fix, who's their sign off accepting for it
Who
to
won't
be
fix it?
true green. They will fix it, but they
You
want
fix
it.
it. If the town fixes it, then go after True Green.
That's what we're doing.
You know, I mean, I've seen this safety hazard there for so long, and I'm concerned about it. I really am concerned that this is a safety issue, and it's gotta be taken care of. If there was a hole in the street, they'd have it fixed in one day. They wouldn't be going around who owns it, and who did this, and who did that. They'd have the thing fixed. Or if there was a hazmat tanker flipped over out there in exit 20, they'd have it fixed. It's the same thing. It's still a safety hazard.
But the problem is, the town owns nothing there. We don't own the street. We
So-
don't own the land. So, the state of New Hampshire claims no ownership as well. So there has to be some one person to make the claim with the insurance company of the entity that caused the accident. Jeannie was able to get the state to agree to let us go forward with the understanding nobody's gonna claim ownership.
I'll claim ownership.
So-
Get it done.
Well, we can do that now, but we're dealing with the state of New Hampshire, and you're dealing with two different departments, and they
Yeah,
move
but that-
slowly.
Yeah, but that happens all the time. We have the DES and the SOP and the AIRs and all these other people who all want their fingers in the pie, but they don't want to come forward and put out any money.
Right, so Jeannie has circumvented that, and that's what she's getting done. She's met with them, she's talked with them, we have a memorandum of understanding.
Who does own it?
Nobody can.
The river is owned by the state of New Hampshire, we know that, the Winnipesaukee River. Who put the wall in, we have no clue. They claim a portion of the wall is theirs, up
Who
by the
claims-
railroad.
excuse me, who
The
claims?
state, I'm sorry.
Okay, the state
Up by the
claims,
railroad crossing, they say that section of the wall is ours. The Packer Brook outlet to the river, they claim is theirs, but the rest of the wall isn't. A resident owns the land underneath, but, so it was a mess. But Jeannie has gotten us to where these are getting signed,
Yes.
it's gonna get fixed.
it's frustrating from a taxpayer's point of view and from a resident's point of view, that we see, number one, it's an eyesore.
That's-
Number two, it's a safety hazard. And safety hazards can't wait. I worked in construction for 30 years, and I've seen buildings come down. They don't sit there and let me see who owns this. They get it done, then they go after the person that they think owns it, or who has jurisdiction. That's what lawyers are for. And that's if some kid falls off of that, you're all gonna be that.
That's why the chain link.
That's why we put up the
That
fence.
doesn't stop kids, you know that.
And neither does a 3.5-foot high rail that we're
No,
gonna
it doesn't.
replace it with.
No, it doesn't.
The issue is who owns that stone wall. If it crashes into the river and it's determined that the town of Tilton owns it, we could pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it put back up.
Well, of course
That's
you
an
can, but you
issue.
can also recover that.
From who? If it falls, act of God, but you own it, it can't sit in the river. The law is a nasty thing, especially when you're dealing with the state, Tom. Sorry, buddy.
I just think it's unconscionable that a safety hazard should be allowed to exist as long as it has.
And that's why we put up the fence.
So looking at our town budget, what pocket of our budget,
Do,
the tax,
is that
we the
memo
taxpayers,
anywhere?
gonna take it out?
There's some,
It isn't, it's an insurance claim.
Yeah, no, if Tom insists that we fix it and then go pursue somebody else,
Is
how
that
do we
the-
pay the bill?
the memo?
And then go.
Right there.
Understand.
Where in our town budget is there?
It's not in the town budget, it's you get a lawyer to sue them.
You gotta sign it, John.
We have to pay the
What
lawyer.
contractor is gonna work on spec, fix the whole thing for
I
free?
came all the way down here with no
I
signatures.
don't get this. What are we signing? Oh, this thing. Yeah, but I was still listening to,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
nothing as easy as it should be. It's sad. It really is sad, but
yeah. Okay, so, selectmen's reports? Anyway. Pepper? I'm sure you got some. I see a notepad there.
So, I was asked to discuss the time capsule with the Board of Selectmen. There appears to have been a capsule that was buried 50 years ago by Timetable Mabel.
how did Timetable Mabel bury a time capsule?
I said by Timetable.
Next.
Oh, near.
Timetable Mabel.
I got
Okay,
it, near.
okay. Maybe she was alive 50 years ago.
And with the help of Jerry Davis and
I
his
saw that.
metal detector, I keep calling it a Geiger counter,
Kinda.
he was able to discern that his strongest reading, there's a millstone in the front of it, on the bridge side, if you will. And then the center is a larger circle. And he got a very, very strong reading from that circle of metal. As he said, it's bigger than a quarter. And that was the strongest reading he had around the monument.
Including the square plaque and
That's
engraved
right.
and on the other side.
That's right. And according to Cindy, language from Dick Mayer, who actually made the time capsule, said it was buried in the center hole. So that would make, if you add those two together, it would tell you what's in there.
Yeah.
But her request is that we get it dug up. And that it should go to the custody of the town clerk since she keeps the records. And it is suggested that we open it at the ceremony where we bury the 150th capsule.
I brought this up
Gene?
last week.
Yeah.
I brought this all up last week.
I'm just telling,
She knew she'd
I
done
was
it
asked.
somewhere before.
I thought there was something new.
no decision was made.
Yeah, we said yes.
We said, yeah.
Say yes
Actually-
to all of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so get it dug up
We had to
now.
find it first, yeah.
Actually, there was one other thing that was, we said that we would open it up prior to the bury of the other one, so we could see what was inside it and perhaps carry on the tradition.
That's probably the reason why, sure.
So we
It
will
is
open it up.
suggested that we don't open it until the ceremony, personally.
We can decide when we dig it up.
I think, yeah, and my
Yeah,
suggestion
yeah.
was at that time, last week, that it would be nice to open up ahead of time so we could see what type of things were in there and perhaps carry on the tradition or do something similar. or put something else back in there that's in there, but at least we know.
Whether we open it beforehand or not, my only opinion is I think it should be a public opening.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll make a big thing of it at the dedication of the.
And I don't know if we want to just let people know when we're going to dig it up, but, it's kind of a...
So, what we did in Meredith, not that you have to follow what Meredith did, but our DPW dug it up. And there were some people around when they dug it up, but it was the opening that was the big ceremony. We had it at Chase House. Alex Ray gave us had free ice cream. There was, a big podium, and then they opened it and looked at everything. And the one thing I think you need to be aware of, our library director was in charge of this, is that when you open it, to be very careful because things could disintegrate.
Yeah.
So I don't know how things were stored, so we did it inside in a building, for more protection, so.
My thoughts would be very similar, that we would set something up, whether it would be here at Town Hall or in some type of thing, have a lot of people and open it up and
So regardless of whether
display
we...
it, and then...
Yeah, and we can decide that.
Bury that thing.
But, so...
Dig it up.
Dig it up.
Don't
Now,
open it.
Can we use Public Works if we need to?
Please.
All right.
Dig it up,
Seems
don't
like
open
they
it.
have a loader that would lift that right off there. That's
Yeah, for some reason it's thought that we can
No.
just dig it out of that hole,
I
but...
think.
I don't know.
There's, you mean,
There's a big millstone, and then there's a little circular thing inside, which I thought was a stone as well, but maybe not.
is it off from it?
No, right in front of the statue
Because
on
I know in the
that side,
boulders,
facing that way. You go out, there's a statue, and then there's a flat rock on the ground, the millstone, and it's really obvious. And in the middle of the millstone, there's a smaller circle where it was attached to a beam or whatever. There's something in that circle.
okay.
Don't know what. I thought it was stone, but it might still be a capstone or something.
And I finally said, this
Could be. Well, no, not 50 years ago.
Choice.
Yeah.
So-
Possibly.
why can't you just be in first position?
What else you got?
So the 150th is having an issue about putting the banners up on the poles. It seems as though Consolidated, which used to be Fairpoint, when was that? 2006 they became Fairpoint? But anyway, Consolidated consumed Fairpoint. Evidently they own, and I'm not really sure if they own all the poles along Route 3, all the poles in the town of Tilton, what their ownership is. But what they require from our insurance carrier is more than they cover. They want $2 million for each occurrence.
Per occurrence.
Per occurrence. Now, that's not our liability, right? Because our liability must be more than $1 million.
Yeah, it's
This is
an aggregate.
per each occurrence.
Yeah. And what our Primex went back and said, okay, we don't offer that. And I even investigated, I asked Primex, could we buy that additional insurance? Is that available? And they said no. They go up to $1 million. They do that with all their towns, so we're not any special or unique. The reason Northfield is able to get it done because they have Primex is because Eversource owns the poles in Northfield. In Tilton, the poles are co-owned per Kelly Sedgley did the homework on that and found out that they're co-owned by Consolidated and Eversource. So while Eversource is something that our insurance company said, okay, and I had this conversation with you, the likelihood of this happening is so low that we understand if you want to go forward on this. Consolidated, however, requires $2 million, and the legal counsel or the general counsel for Primex has been going back and forth with them to try to resolve it, saying, okay, what if we put you in first position? If there's an occurrence, that you get the first, so they're not in second place if there's any kind of issue. And they wanted nothing to do with that. They said, no, it's It's 2 million, that's it, we're not
Per
negotiating.
pole,
Oh, no, it's just,
per occurrence,
yeah.
so if something happens,
What
Yeah.
would the $2 million per occurrence cost us? We can't get
we
it.
can't get it,
Can't get it.
that's the issue. So it doesn't matter even if we, and Consolidated, we could give them Primex's, our certificate of insurance, but it's inadequate according to
We
Consolidated.
just don't want flags on the pole.
You can't get it from any place else other than Primex?
No. You mean an additional carrier?
Mhm.
No, I think actually Kelly looked into that through another insurance company. I think I had this conversation with you last week.
So
And
you
no.
can't get it through a private insurance company? Can't, okay.
So
so
this
my
is-
question is.
other towns, what do they do?
Well, other towns apparently don't have the situation we have,
Consolidated.
So,
that they're co-owned.
so my question is, do they just have that co-ownership along the Route 311 corridor?
Mhm.
Well, that would be a
Post
question. It would be a question. My understanding from the conversation with Kelly is that her first conversation with Eversource said, just go ahead and put them on our polls, because I think she asked a question, do you own the, because we were thinking that, Eversource, let's say, owned the first 10 poles, and then Consolidated might have owned 1 or 2 here or there.
In there, yeah.
But what she found out from Eversource is that all the poles are co-owned by Eversource and Consolidated.
But is that just the
Equally?
Route 311 corridor?
That,
Because-
whatever it is that we were looking at in terms of the poles.
Which is Route 311.
Yeah.
So my point is, if we can't do Route 311, if Consolidated doesn't own the poles up School Street or up our regular streets, then we can still put up banners.
Bridge Street, Center Street,
Bridge Street.
that's what I just said.
Oh,
Bridge
did you?
Street, Park Street, Center,
So-
maybe Park, I don't know.
So you've been following the emails back and
Not-
forth.
Not as close
Well-
as I should. I got this information from hearsay. Hence the reason I sent an email out going, what's going on with the banners? Because I was getting conflicting.
So it was a primary fundraiser for the Tilton 150th to raise money for the activities.
Sponsors on the banner.
Right, the town set aside or budgeted 10,000. We're probably about, I've been tracking the expenses, we're probably about just a little over 3,000 in expenses so far. If this was their major fundraiser and we can't do it, is it because you want banners on the poles, or is the driving reason a fundraiser? If the driving reason is a fundraiser, then what else can we do? First of all, every one of these activities, they need to find out exactly what their budget is, if there's a gap. Remember, you budgeted 10,000, this is starting in June, and you got another half a year into 2020 to close it out, so. I think the committee really needs to, if this
What
isn't.
would have been the revenue that they would be losing, do you think?
Well, it was pretty significant, but I don't know what that matched up in terms of what our spend is, because I haven't seen a real solid budget in
Right, so
terms
you
of.
wouldn't have been able to spend that amount in programs and activities that you would have spent it on. That's what I'm trying to get at. So do we need to raise in fundraising in another area is what you're getting at?
Right.
Or do we need to raise that in the budget?
Right.
Will the event start, the end of June?
Yeah. So you have the
Municipal
street
poll
fair,
tax.
or excuse me, the
We
street
already
fair,
assessed that, so
right? And
they pay property taxes.
those activities are, I think they're vendor fees. I think there was money in the budget for the advertising, I think for some music. I have to go back and look. So you have the street fair and the time capsule. That pretty much is those purchases have been made. The major expense for the time capsule and the stone that's going to mark it. the tube regatta, you have that going on this summer. The marker, which I've submitted the paperwork and waiting to hear back from the state on that. That was $1,200, I think, for the marker, which hasn't been paid for, but that might not happen until the new year. I don't know how long it takes the state to move on something like that.
Right.
So those are and then there's a street fair the next year, and the Old Home Days, which whatever it is you do for that. So those are the activities. And I think if it does not appear to me that the banners are going to go. And if the banners aren't going to go, then I think the next step for the committee is to really sit down and figure out the budget for each one of these activities and what the gap is, and then is there another way to fundraise, or do we have to cut back?
Or do we find some movement in the budget?
Well, maybe we go around and beat on some doors and see if we can get some grants or substantial donations from, I mean, you know,
I'd like to call Eversource.
maybe consolidate
What,
this
to
and
ask
say
them
instead of us
for
a
funding?
grant.
Yeah.
Just usually those larger
Somebody
companies,
will donate.
down the main,
Oh,
they don't.
yeah. Should probably talk to Kelly, because she was the one who,
She's on vacation.
yep. Thought she was answering her emails. Mm,
I'll talk to you after.
yeah. It's your 10 minutes to the witching hour.
That time.
Almost up.
I passed the witching hour.
Joe?
Pass.
Peter?
Yeah, just one. Sunday, May 19th, 9 to noon, is the Tilton Northfield Rotary's annual fishing derby at the Tilton School Pond up on School Street, free to kids through age 15. The derby's like 9 to noon, I think, and registration starts at 8.
Pat?
I have a couple items. I met with the new director of transportation for Community Action Program. The executive committee met yesterday. There are two, everybody's new now. Cindy Yansky, she's the mobility manager for Region 3, and Rosa Burt, she's the transportation travel trainer for the volunteer driver program. She took Juliana's place. They are trying to revamp the program. They came up to meet with the executive committee to listen to our concerns with the issues that we have with the volunteer driver program. As you know, back in our days, we coordinated with the chat and partnershiped with them. And most of our drivers went with them, and through age they're no longer driving for them, so they were looking for volunteers to drive. So we came up with a couple of ideas, and one of them on Rosa and Cindy are going to have an informational session at the senior center on May, hold on a minute, I gotta get my book out here. I'm sorry, on June 3rd at 5:30 in the evening is one of them, and it's going to talk about how to become a volunteer driver. And for the record, a volunteer driver takes seniors to doctor's appointments most of the time, 99% of the time. And you set your own hours, and you decide on how many trips you provide, and you opt in to receive a mileage reimbursement, which is 55 cents a mile. And then on June 7th at 11:30 in the morning at the senior center will be another informational session as well on how to become a volunteer driver program, and also other opportunities for volunteer senior companion. And there's 8 different ways to volunteer, but primarily we're looking for volunteer driver program. And we're trying to revamp that system because there's not a lot of drivers for Tilton, and we're having to deny a lot of people access to that program in the Tilton area. We have a lot of drivers for Laconia, we have a lot of drivers for the Belmont area, but not a lot, it seems, for Tilton and Alton area. They're really down in that area. So we're asking for the folks and residents, if you have an hour or two a week or a couple hours a week, you pick your day, you pick your hours, you go into a little computer and say, yeah, I can take that one, just like the little Uber drivers that do it. On our Memorial Day parade is May 27th at 9 a.m. Typically, we don't get a lot of people, and I'd really want to put the word out early so that we can flood the downtown with people to support our veterans downtown. This year, Polly's Jim Lambert, 10 years ago, Jim put up the window with all of our fallen heroes in the town of Tilton. He reenacted that window this year, and so hope people go downtown and take a look at that.
Could you repeat that date one more time?
It's May 27th at 9 a.m. is the Memorial Day Parade. That's Monday.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. I've also sent you an email just now, a couple minutes ago, because I forgot to send it earlier. There's a couple of, remember Bob Huey had spoke about an opening where you could see from the inside out underneath the senior center where there's openings in the foundation. Well, Emily had taken a picture the other day, and it's very clear, but it looks like a pipe. And after the carpenter is finished jacking up the ceiling, the floor and the joists and everything, once he's finished with that area, I'd like to see if Kevin might be able to seal that opening. It's where a pipe goes in, and you can visually see that it's pretty. It has a pretty big hole. I have no idea how to even.
Wow.
So that's one. Can you see the pipe right there?
Mm-hmm.
Right here? I don't know what that pipe is.
I
It's
don't
gotta be
know.
like a water. I think that's the pipe from the air conditioning unit.
This looks like some kind of drainage pipe.
Oh,
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say
Gutter,
drain.
but there's no gutters.
So, I think that's what Bob Bowie was referring to. But that's it. That's all for me.
Anybody else?
You.
Once?
You.
Jeannie?
Did I feel like I mentioned it to you about the Primex came back and said they were fine with storing the PVC pipe on the field.
Yes, I asked you this early on in the meeting.
Oh, you okay, so, okay, you did ask me. So you heard that, right, Peter? It was, you had asked, the sewer commission had asked about storing.
Oh, the water
It's the
company.
water.
What's that?
Water district.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Other pipes.
Oh, sorry. But they said yes to that. They were fine with that.
I'll get the word to the water commission.
Yes, generally
Oh, I
what
did.
happens is the property owner works a deal out with the contractor to get something in lieu of rent, that's all.
John, I do have one more thing.
Sure.
The budget committee, as you know, the budget committee met last night, and they made a motion to send out their information packets and require them, outside agencies, to return them by September 3rd instead of October, knowing that we want to get our budgets out early and start working on them. So they're requiring, they changed it from October 3rd to September 3rd. So that's in the process.
The assessment letters went out. I've gotten a few phone calls that people were very,
Oh, yeah.
Just a few?
very,
I was gonna say,
had a lot to say about it.
Just a
So
few.
I think we might want to go and discuss that the next meeting.
Discuss that, and it's on the tape.
Okay,
You weren't
good.
here when he.
Kim
Yeah,
made,
he came up and explained it, but I'm sure people still have.
People still don't
Questions?
understand.
Yeah.
I've explained it over and over again.
19%'s your break point, John.
It is alarming.
It does seem like that.
Tim gave a presentation, really nice one.
I'll watch it. Thank you. That's all, folks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Something else.
Jason.